Is anybody here?
Yes, my brother. How may I help you?
Yeah, are you Kalinga, leader of the People's Revolutionary Army?
Are you CIA?
No.
I am Kalinga.
I need to talk to you.
Yes. Have a seat. Would you care for something to eat? A bean pie, perhaps?
No, I'm not hungry.
Something to drink. Please sit down. Herb tea. A soda.
Okay, soda's fine.
Articulate your needs. I'm here to listen. How may I help you?
Well, first of all,
it's an acquired taste. Now, how may I help you, my brother?
look, I'm here because I can't stand what's happening in this community.
Yes!
Yeah, and somebody has to make a change.
Yes!
Now, brother, will you help me?
Yes! Well, I wish I could.
Damn it, man, I heard the People's Revolutionary Army was once 1,000 strong. Now, what happened?
They got government jobs.
What?
You know that government office building on 25th Street?
Yeah?
We went down to take it over. But they were hiring that day. The brothers walked in with guns. They came out with jobs. The brothers weren't mad anymore. Yes. Whitey is something else.
Damn.
Context of White Supremacy. We just heard the African Liberation Army, or as close as we're going to get to it. That was actually Hollywood legend, the great Keenan Ivory Wayans feature film, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. That is a classic. If you got, you don't need to watch it. Reading is more important than watching television. Although, man, I would rather watch, if you gave me the choice, you can watch I'm Gonna Get You Sucker or read The Nutritional Destruction of Black People. Keenan Ivory Wayans is going to win every time. No contest. Be that as it may. This is our 8th study session. The worst book I have ever read. No contest. The lamest of the lame. Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. At least I can say, well, at least that book was edited correctly. I didn't have to go through every other word and say, oh, wow, look at this. Which word did they mean? Did they mean morality or mortality? Anywho, we're continuing this week. There's more name calling. That's why I said it's lots of different reasons why this is easily the worst book I've ever read. Another hefty round of name calling this week. Name calling Bill Cosby of all black people. He gets quite a few black folks, and this is at least the second time that he has had a roll call of black people. Like, I need to call out particular black people for being Uncle Toms and coons and sellouts and all the rest of it. No name calling. And again, we have read close to 2/3 of this book. We're thankfully well beyond the halfway point. Thank you. But I don't recall at any point where he has name called not one white person. In fact, I don't even remember him singling out any white people and being like, oh, that no good, dirty, Bill Clinton is a racist, or that no good, dirty George Bush is a racist cracker. I don't even remember any of that. It's just been black people, Madam C.J. Walker and, Jesse Jackson, and now Bill Cosby. We got all these coons running around here, Negroes, and sellouts. No name calling. I have not seen where that helps us solve one single problem. And I am really not sure how calling another black person names is going to keep me or any other Negroes from eating themselves to death, which again is what is on the front cover of the book. I thought that's what this was supposed to be all about. I could be confused. Continuing with the worst book ever, Dr. Llaila Afrika's The Nutritional Destruction of the Black Race. Context of White Supremacy. Oh, I forgot to do the date and time. I'm so disgusted with this book. It's Thursday, May 28th, 2020, so I have been told. Now we can get to audio segment number 1. Change the name, not the behavior. The improved changes that have occurred in civilization among the various races were of African origin. Africa is the acknowledged cradle of the world's first civilization, scientists, and spiritual peoples. It was Africans who introduced the modern developments to the world. For example, in the Americas, the Africans introduced the system of bureaucracy, government, apartments, orchestra, music, pyramids, medicine, and kinship to the natives. In China, the African Fu Si of the divine dynasty introduced yin and yang, or Horu, and Falcon, head energy division system. In Japan, Africans introduced the religious system, of which karate is a minor part. Africans sailed the seas long before Caucasians and introduced astrology, culture, language, science, banking, textiles, architecture, agriculture, chemistry, mercantilism, mathematics, navigation, etc. to other civilizations. Everywhere Africans went, they improved societies and helped to uplift people by initiating constructive changes. Perhaps Africans should have continued to guide, monitor, and influence those civilizations' reactions to change, but did not. In other words, Africans are the custodians of change and have nurtured change among others. If there is to be another change on this planet, it can only be an outgrowth of the initial change that Africans implemented. Change is a melanin and godly African responsibility. Early African transatlantic and trans-Pacific traders introduced the fruits such as the orange that came from the south and Indochina, grapefruit from East Indies, papaya from America, pineapple from Brazil, mangoes from Asia, bananas from India, avocado from Central America, lemons from Himalayas and Burma, and lime from Burma. The Caucasians are not about to change and have not been able to change their barbaric behavior. They can only react to the artifacts or material things of change or steal the products of change. They cannot create change. For example, Africans changed the Caucasian diet by introducing different types of foods and tried to change their disease condition by introducing hygienic medicine. Despite the African foods and medicines, the Caucasians remain basically on a meat and potatoes diet and are still a sickly race. They are still a clans people with mob violence, mob illness, dysfunctional families, and mob sex. Historically, mob sex and breeding sex orgies were a central focus in their culture. Sex breeding orgies are usually a confused mixture of mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, relatives, male and female casual acquaintances, friends, strangers, homosexuals, married and single people, young and old who may or may not have venereal diseases. This mob sex can be random or scheduled and is usually called free sex, adultery, sex out of wedlock, or permissive behavior. It is merely an extended form of mob breeding founded upon Caucasian individualism, not human relationships. It is a dysfunctional characteristic of their clan societies. Selfish, individualistic societies that have not mastered human relationships are sex orgy-oriented. Caucasians have not been able to escape gang sex, the Ice Age mentality, white supremacy, full moon, sexual activities, honeymoons, romantic moonlight, etc., or their collective mental illness characterized by self-hatred. They used and use bathtubs for sexual purposes and historically related cleanliness to a form of superstition. Caucasians who did bathe used the bathtub for murder, clairvoyance, and sex orgies. Others used sheep fat, pig, dog, or cattle, or rotten animal grease to bathe with. Mob sex, or permissive sex as the Caucasians call it, is a part of their society and has not historically changed and is constant. The name has been changed by them to permissive sex, but the group sex activity remains unchanged. In order to change any part of their society, they must overcome self-hatred and stop recycling self-hatred. For example, they kink their hair, thicken their lips, tan their skin, shave their legs, buy buttock pads and brassieres, use makeup to add color to their pale skin, and imitate African dances, music, and slang words in order to resemble Africans because they hate themselves. They cannot change the diseases and deaths that they cause with nutrition and medicine until they make a holistic change. They changed the names of diseases periodically. However, the human body has not changed, nor has its disease reactions changed. God gave you a human life that you live with understanding and a human body that is easily understood. The human body is a small universe. There are plants, bushes, and grass on the skin of the earth. There's also vegetation on the skin of the digestive tract, except medical people call it flora of the earth. There are animals and insects that live around vegetation. There are animals and insects that live around the body's flora, except in science they are called bacteria. The evaporation of the waters in oceans and lakes causes water to go up to the sky where the temperature is below freezing. The water vapor turns to negative charged snow. Then the fluffy light snow rises higher into the sky and clusters together, which forms positive charged hail. The heavy positive charged hail starts to fall and collides into the negative charged snow that makes energy. The same thing occurs in the body. The negative charged cells collide with positive charged cells, which makes energy for your body to function. The body is not difficult to understand. It is the medical practitioners that are difficult to understand. They are into a name change hustle. They change the names of disease in order to keep the change out of your pocket so they can put your change in their pocket. Why do they change names of your body's functions and organs to Latin or Greek names? You don't speak the languages and they don't speak it. By changing the names, you become ignorant and now need them to translate the Latin Greek name disease back into English names. You have to pay them to be a translator. These medical hustlers use the name change game to get your change. Again, the human body is easy to understand. Feces that can out your anus must go up and out. Blocked feces liquid backs up to your kidney, eyes, veins, muscles, mouth, arteries, etc. Whenever the liquid feces changes its location, they change its name. Therefore, the ill person has to change medical specialist, change drug prescription, change another type of series of tests and x-rays. This keeps the change moving to the medical hustler's pocket. Caucasians are consumed by their own minds and constantly recycle diseases of body, mind, and spirit. They would rather restore or rehabilitate trash than rehabilitate the African continent. Caucasian synthetic junk food clans are not interested in recycling Africans' health. They are more interested in recycling trash, drugs, crime, and disease addiction. The clans of synthetic food companies are not built to meet the ethno-nutritional needs of Africans. Food companies only respond to profit, not nutritional needs. They use the economics of stupidity. Their nutricidal economics is of supply and demand. If you do not have money, you cannot make demands. Therefore, you do not get supply. If you do not have money, you starve. Theirs is an unjust economy that has not changed and repeats recycling economic failures. If the African eat Caucasian synthetic food, they nutritionally starve their bodies into a disease state. Caucasians cannot change their diseased minds and white racism. Caucasians remain unchanged. They recycle their behavior of violence and change the name of their behavior to manifest destiny, exploration, war, slave codes, colonialism, religion, nutrition, but remain unchanged. They pacify themselves and say they have evolved from a monkey and will continue to evolve to higher heights. However, historically they evolved to their highest level with Greek civilization and have not changed or improved since that time. Change is melanin mediated. The more melanin a race has, the more able they are to change and create change. Melanin electrochemically and biochemically converts or changes energy, be it mental, physical, or spiritual. Caucasians are melanin albinos and physiologically have the least ability to change. Change is sometimes related to karma. Karma, in simple definition, is reaction to an action. It is believed that the Caucasians' previous negative behavior caused them to be barbaric, mentally ill, and enslavers of Africans. It is also assumed that Africans' previous negative behavior of thousands of years ago caused them to be enslaved. In other words, everything is paying for a past negative karma. Karma debt includes the polluted waters, karma debt, the polluted air, fertilizer, poisoned soil, hybrid and cloned plants, extinct animals, insects, people as well as religions, science, nutrition, medicine, and outer space. Karma is the relationship of all to the many. The ability to improve, establish, understand, and create karmic change is a melanin event. Consequently, it is futile to look to melanin albinos to change or relate to change. They can change the name, but not the behavior. There is no historical evidence to indicate that Caucasians have changed their relationship with Africans. The history of the Caucasians' use of food to destroy Africans has been one of Nutricide. It is Africans who must change and use natural foods and medicines, or their bodies will be a tomb that houses the holistically dead. The Caucasians have controlled Africans, though changes in diet or behavior. Caucasians have told Africans what food to eat and not eat. There are many types of edible grasses. However, Africans are told to grow grass they cannot eat in their front lawn and backyards. In fact, Africans grow grass that only cattle can eat and do not have a cow. Africans are taught to believe that the only food worthy to eat is the food the former slave master eats. Consequently, Africans do not grow edible dandelions and or poke plants in their lawns or yards. They can be eaten in salads or alone. The young leaves of the maple and or ash trees can be eaten. However, Africans do not grow these trees, and if they do, will not eat the leaves unless told to do so by Caucasian food clans. Caucasians not only control dietary behavior, but also social behavior. The ultimate control of Africans has had a change in name, but not in results. For example, slave codes, home rules, states' rights, Jim Crow, civil rights, and curfew laws are designed to keep Africans in a slave and slave master relationship. Curfew laws, such as those in Baltimore, Maryland, make it a crime for children to be outside after 10 p.m. without legal guardians. Violations result in arrest and or fines for the parent and a criminal record for the child and adult. Adults unable to pay fines can be imprisoned. A criminal record eventually leads to violence, underemployment, unemployment, crime, drugs, employment as cheap prison labor, and the criminalization of African men and women, which creates more curfew violations and junk food addicts. Africans maimed, mutilated, shot, or injured in violence become organ harvest candidates. The organ harvesting, or taking hearts, kidneys, lungs, corneas of eyes, bone marrow, prostates, genital parts, digestive organs, arteries, veins, etc., is a profitable economic business. The Americans for Medical Progress Educational Foundation indicates that in order to double the profits of human organ harvesting, there are plans to cut kidneys in half. Added to this are ethnic junk food companies that sell harmful chemicalized processed black-eyed peas, collards, corn muffins, sweet potatoes, turnip greens, etc. that weaken Africans' health and help them to become unable to survive physical injuries, which make them organ harvest candidates. Caucasians have changed the name of their behavior, but have remained slave master colonialists and maintain Nutricide. Fight to pieces or eat to pieces. The mental and emotional signs and symptoms of Caucasian cannibalism are still present in their culture. They continue to have pretend meals of human and raw animal flesh. For example, they eat the pretend flesh of the gingerbread boy, animal and human-shaped cookies and cereals, vitamin-shaped people such as Mr. and Mrs. Flintstones, and the symbolic blood dripping from the Christmas sugar candy canes. The Caucasian women continue to symbolically use blood to extract a mate by painting their lips and claws. They continue to eat bloody flesh such as half-raw beefsteak and liver and symbolically pour red blood on animal flesh. The irony of this is that the white race is too psychotic to comprehend their mental illness and too defensive of their inferiority to accept any constructive criticism or therapy or discipline. To attempt to reason with cannibalistic psychotic whites is the same as doing an African dance without the drum or having a logical conversation with a drunk or drug addict in a stupor. Confrontation, dialogue with Caucasians often leads to violence. Violence is the medium of exchange that Caucasians historically have with Africans, Native Americans, Indians, Koreans, and other people of color, as well as other Caucasians. Historically, Caucasian violence and fighting among each other was very unorganized. Typically, when Caucasian men fought each other, they would bite pieces of flesh from each other's arms, face, legs, stomach, and would gouge out each other's eyes. They also would bite off pieces of ears or noses, mutilate testicles, and bite off fingers, which basically amounted to mutilation and cannibalism. Usually after fights, body parts, pieces of fingers, and flesh would be found on the ground. Defeat was often followed by further mutilation of the defeated. The French attempted to put some law and order to fighting, and the British attempted to use the laws of Kingsbury. However, each clan had its own chaos, and victory was honored as the only rule for fighting. Fighting by Caucasian clans amounts to the loss of one's body parts or life. It is the same with their disease-causing allopathic medicine and junk food diet, because Africans lose pieces of their body or their entire body to Nutricide. Crazy white folks. White racism is a mental illness that is classified as a psychosis. A psychosis is a total break with participation in the real world. African people have been defending their bodies, minds, and spirits from white racism. In some cases, have become infected by white racism. White racism means the power to inflict white supremacy. White supremacy is the belief that the white race is superior without any evidence to support the belief except lies and the imagination of a diseased mind. Understanding the nature of the psychotic white mind helps an African defend herself against a white-dominated world contaminated by white supremacy. White psychotics equal crazy white folks. There are nice, kind, caring, sensitive, and humane people with diseases. Being nice does not stop the disease. There are nice white people with white supremacy disease. Being nice does not stop them from being a white racist. Their niceness is mixed consciously and subconsciously with their mental illness. In other words, they are still crazy. Psychotic whites do not accept what is real. They accept only what is imagined to be real and believe what their imagination sees, not what their eyes see. They believe, then see, and only believe what they see. The nature of the crazy white mind dictates that sanity cannot be trusted. Only insanity can be trusted, because insanity has become a mental parent, friend, marriage, and companion. In many ways, insanity gives security because it never abandons whites. Historically, the Ice Age Caucasian could not trust nature to supply food. The environment was hostile, with animals and people running from attacks. There were icebergs, earthquakes, land collisions making loud thundering sounds, unstable weather with floods, and unstable breast milk supply which disrupted or destroyed the bond of mother and nature. Aside from this, cannibalism was rampant, along with rape and orgies compounded by diseases and nutrient deficiencies that caused mental illness to be an accepted way of life. The white mind in the past and present has manufactured superstitions to explain and protect the mind from emotional, psychological, and spiritual harm. These superstitions may have been needed during the Ice Age. However, the Ice Age mentality is still genetically part of melanin, albino, Caucasian civilization. It is reflected in their mental illness combined with the negative mental effects that melanin deficiency causes. Their minds show the signs and symptoms of a person with an untreated mental disease. A healthy, untreated mind may regress from anxiety to neurosis and then psychosis. However, the white mind has never been psychologically treated for mental illness and has degrees of psychosis that do not lead back to a healthy mind, but back to another type of diseased mind. Their mental illness weaves a thought path based upon the mental life of whites as normal. Sigmund Freud, a European pioneer on the state of the white mind, describes the white mind as a mind diseased with sexual conflicts, self-hatred, anger, violence, in conflict with itself and with its parents and siblings, and deficient of love. He essentially says the white mind is created to remain constantly in conflict with good and evil, or sanity and insanity. Other white mind scientists basically say that the white mind is evil, or the mind is good and must overcome its evil to self-actualize. The basic ingredient of the white mind remains a conflict in a marriage of good against evil, or sane against insane. Needless to say, the Caucasian mind scientists never explain the white race's disease of white racism. This means their scientists are too mentally ill to accept or see that they are mentally ill. White folks have episodes of sanity and are superficially sane in many of their mental activities. This sanity collapses if the mental disease of white racism is forced to be focused on. They have situational sanity that is united to incomplete thoughts combined with fragments of racism psychosis. The white mind lacks a beginning path. Their mind sees itself as not evolved from a human state but an animal mind state. For example, evolutionists scientist Charles Darwin wrote that whites did not evolve from the human kingdom, but the animal kingdom. Whites believe they started millions of years ago as a one-celled slime creature that lived in the sea, then evolved into a fish, then a reptile, then crawled or walked to a tree, then climbed up a tree and became a monkey, then climbed or fell out the tree and became a white man. They believe their minds still have the combined thinking ability of a one-celled slime creature, a fish, a reptile, a monkey, and a walking ape. To whites, their minds still have primitive qualities and are evil. Their white mind must be controlled or it will destroy them in order to satisfy the primitive desire to have sex with themselves or their mothers and fathers, kill for food, or be in competition with their brothers or sisters over their parents' sexual attention. They believe their minds to have taboos, superstitions, or conflicting desires, and see the world and all animals and plants as in conflict or fighting for food to survive. They believe their minds cannot be trusted. This is mental illness. White mental illness is constantly moving to and from sanity episodes based on insanity. Insanity that runs from a deep belief that the mind will destroy itself in order to satisfy primitive desires. Insanity is a friend, lover, parent, and companion of the white race, and a marriage between sane and insane thoughts that produces more insane thoughts. Their minds protect their insanity because it is the only thing in life they can trust. The trust of insanity creates more fear and conflict and mistrust of sanity. Mental illness is the one thing they feel superior to. It brings psychological comfort to them because in the real world they are insane and inferior to Africans, Chinese, Indians, Japanese, and natives in North and South Americas. This diseased mind sees conflict in harmony and harmony in conflict. This is a disease that consumes its own mental pus in order to live. The degree of white racism disease follows an order, be it chaotic, psychotic, or perverted. In mental illness, there is order and basically 3 levels. A sane person can move in and out of the levels or degrees, but an insane person gets frozen in a mental state and cannot move out of it. A creative person may use levels of thoughts to write a novel, music, or create dance or paint art, but knows when to use them, how, why, and when to stop. The insane have lost that ability and are trapped in a mental prison. A mild temporary mental imbalance is an anxiety, which is when you get nervous over something for real. For example, a person can get anxious about buying a new house. This is a normal stressor, and anxiety is a normal response. Neurosis is different. A neurotic person imagines unreal dangers about buying a house. They overamplify the problems of buying a house and get extremely anxious over an unreal association with reality. For example, a drug addict is neurotic because he is addicted and has unreal beliefs about the drug and himself. He may believe he is in control and not addicted, and at the same time knows he is addicted. A psychotic person imagines that he has bought the imaginary house and believes that he is actually living in the house and will pay the monthly mortgage with imaginary money. This is a psychosis, a total break with the real world. Any attempt by Africans to demonstrate, vote, pray, educate, or give healing therapy to a racist Caucasian will cause the white psychotic inferiority complex to be stimulated. This can result in their fighting back with abusive mental, spiritual, or physical violence and more varieties of craziness. The psychotic white racists, supremacists, are no longer capable of solving the psychotic problems that their diseased minds, bodies, and spirit have created. Added to this, the white race experiences pain from a history of self-abuse, the deliberate murder of 200 million Africans, the enslavement and the colonizing of Africans. At the same time, white racists get a pleasing mental sensation from masturbating their craziness on African people. They continue to fornicate all over the world with images of superiority over Africans with movies, violence, chemistry, wars, videos, history, education, biology, politics, medicine, television, radio, colors, music, computers, laws, religion, money, disease, starvation, crime, ecology, nutrition, jails, and sex. They create, control, and feed their psychoses by using all activities to make Africans appear inferior. Whites are a juvenile civilization of thugs that entertains itself with ignorance, sex, disease, and violence. The white supremacist lives in the nation of imagination. Consequently, they demand Africans to mutilate and sacrifice to their inferiority. White racism is a psychotic cancer of the mind built on a deep mistrust of nature, God, self, other races, and their own race. The crazy whites aim their illness at something they can see, weigh, and measure, called Africans. The whites' crazy mind cannot measure or quantify mental illness. It feeds their craziness with acts of violence, sex, and by ruling or ruining, Africans are put in an inferior posture by an inferior white race. A race is measured by its products, such as art, science, and human relationships. Whites have no sane human relationship with Africans. Whites mirror that they cannot own or create peace, love, spirituality, or a humanistically valuable relationship with Africans. Whites create what they are inside their psychotic minds. For example, whites make Negroes feel honored or blessed that Caucasians have accumulated vast research and knowledge. Whites never acknowledge that they stole the knowledge from ancient Africans who are not honored. Their mind is in conflict with itself. Their minds are violent with a superstitious belief that they want to destroy the evil part of their mind, so they commit violence against Africans who they defined as bad, inferior, evil, or criminals. They assume that by stealing a statue of God, they have become God. They assume that by stealing African people's resources, land, knowledge, culture, and religion, that they are somehow superior. Whites are victims of their own insanity and assume that by stealing a sane people, they themselves become sane. The whites' psychosis has them embalmed in a psychotic cloud which could be cured by mental therapy, spiritual therapy, violence, or African holistic sanity. It is a disease that lives on conflict with nature, people, God, life, and competition with sanity. The Caucasian excessive conflict and competition psychosis justifies their murder of over 200 million Africans with their theory of evolution. The evolutionary myth ignorantly says that methane gas accidentally collided with lightning and created the one-celled slime creature that evolved to become monkey-like and walked around until it evolved to become the white man. This evolutionary myth says Caucasians were first very primitive humans that made mistakes while evolving to become the white race. The mistakes, conflicts, murders, slavery, cannibalism, chicanery, and exploitation of African land and peoples are explained as a part of nature's process of Caucasian evolution. Thus, Caucasian competition with self, nature, God, and Africans is merely a step in their self-actualization and manifest destiny towards the white race's perfection. Competition requires that one individual wins and the other individual loses. Competition is not a family, communal, or people-sharing concept. Whites have their insanity in competition with their sanity, so it follows that in this competitive mental state, if sanity wins, it wins insanity, and if insanity loses, it loses sanity and remains insane. White racism is a disease that must eat a daily meal of sanity to convert insanity, or a meal of insanity to be in conflict and married to sanity. Whites are in fear of insanity and hide from insanity in hopes of becoming sane. Sanity causes a fear because it would mean that whites must accept their cultural inferiority and give up their false claims to African and American land and their claim to the wealth that the resources of those lands produced. In this sane white state, they would no longer be in power. Whites will hold on to their insanity because it is a safe, secure state for them. They have learned to defend insanity with logic, wars, racism, religion, money, education, and the mutilation and destruction of Africa and Africans. To call an insane white race anything other than crazy is to support and nourish white insanity. Whites make insanity pleasing and attractive by using violence and sex as an attractive cover for the pleasure they derive from being insane. If this sounds crazy, it is because it is crazy. This is white craziness and cannot sound any other way. A conversation about soccer or baseball will sound like a conversation about soccer or baseball, so it follows a conversation about white insanity will sound insane. White psychotics think that they can escape white racism by reading the autobiography of Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or collecting postage stamps of Bishop Tutu, Joe Louis, George Washington Carver, or Marian Anderson. This is the same as a drunk alcoholic or high cocaine addict reading a book about a sober or drug-free person, or thinking that all will somehow make them sober or drug-free. White racism is a mental disease that must be fed daily, or it will consume the carrier. It makes any brief episode of sanity a horrible experience because the ghosts of millions of murdered Africans and Indians haunt every sane thought. Sanity is worthless because because it does not give the white mind any power. Sanity only reinforces a primitive animal mind that is locked in a battle of good against evil, the conscious against the unconscious, love against loot, power against the powerless, and insanity against sanity. It is clear that in order to be a white supremacist racist, you first must be insane. Africans who want to gain some insight into white insanity must realize that the highly melanated African brain, nervous system, and skin biochemically makes African thought process different from the melanin deficient white thought process. Melanated thinking is highly rhythmical, electromagnetic, spiritual, and communal. White thought process lack the biochemical radiation and tend to travel distance at a slow speed without absorbing charges from other thoughts. African brains have 12 melanated centers, while whites only have 2 melanin centers. This puts Africans in direct connection with ecological systems, so they tend to contact seen and unseen energy in a highly spiritual and extrasensory thought process. The white brain and an African brain may look alike, but are anatomically and biochemically different and have electromagnetic operative factors that make them different. Whites usually learn by thought conflict or memorization, while Africans learn in conceptual and spiritual family pictures. African learning is a rhythmical process, while white learning is non-rhythmical and must place pros against cons or goods against evil as the main factor for creating ideas. White mental illness comes from conflict and escalates to conflicts supporting conflicts. Whites are mentally divided and conquered by their insanity. African people who are forced to socialize in white society may become divided and conquered unless they are Afrocentric. Whites are divided as a people. Whites do not trust each other or each other's governments. They maintain police to protect themselves from each other. White countries maintain armies to protect their countries from other white countries. This universal white behavior is a reflection of the condition of the white mind. Historically, whites arrested slaves for stealing themselves. A slave who ran away was considered stealing himself. Consequently, they were captured and punished for stealing. Currently, an African who violently fights for his freedom and liberation from white supremacy is considered as violating the whites' freedom and is arrested and punished for crimes against freedom and liberty. It is a crazy white mind that can conceive of a crime of stealing yourself or violating your own freedom by wanting your freedom. They have equally and democratically distributed white racism and Nutricide to all African people. Food terrorist. Caucasians use the need for food caused by famines or starvation as a way to intimidate or seize control of a group of people or government. This is called terrorism. When food is used to control a people, it is food terrorism. Food control is called marketing. Marketing is the manipulation and control of food for economic profit. Marketing is taught in all Caucasian colleges. Marketing requires the invasion of the marketplace. Invasion is a Caucasian word that means to capture, steal, exploit, control, or take by force. Invasions give money or capital. That means white power. The power of Caucasians to control the food supply of other Caucasians is a Caucasian issue. The power of Caucasians to control the food of Africans is a racial issue and a violation of human rights. It is a form of white racism and nutritional terrorism. Food terrorism is another tool of white supremacy that serves to exploit, dehumanize, disenfranchise, create diseases, and destroy Africans for the economic profit of whites. Whites deliberately attack the African food supply with their gangs of thugs called the United States of America, corporations, pharmaceutical cartels, the United Nations, and other Caucasian capitalist running dogs such as Britain, France, Russia, Japan, China, etc. The Caucasian food terrorist invasions of Africa was and is designed to make the continent of Africa and its people food slaves. The terrorist captures the land, then uses the land to grow Caucasian foods. It then switches the African to Caucasian foods that cause Caucasian diseases and dependency on Caucasian foods. African food dependency required the Caucasians to create an African peasant class of landless laborers. The food terrorists learn in college marketing classes that food has no relationship to physical or mental diseases or behavior. They market Caucasian junk food to Africans and maintain that food is not destructive to mental, physical, and spiritual health. Food terrorists use food to control the rate of population growth and African access to power. food-dependent Africans are triage. Triage is usually used when large numbers of people, such as sick or injured people, need emergency medical help. It is a socially accepted form of genocide whereby the extremely injured, sick, are allowed to die while the slightly injured are saved. However, triage can be used with institutions, the poor, businesses, services, or a race of people. In the Caucasian triage system of food terrorism, the Africans who are made weak or diseased from undernutritional Caucasian junk food are left to die while nutritionally stronger Africans live. The triage disease and death-causing system is built into the marketing scheme. The marketing policy of Caucasians causes Africans to stop eating expensive millet, rye, barley, wild rice, manioc, beans, and other seeds in favor of cheap wheat. Caucasians sell wheat at cheaper prices than any other grains. This forces poor Africans to avoid other grains. In other words, they no longer buy from black farmers. They buy from white farmers. The African then becomes wheat dependent. The African farmer cannot compete with the rich multinational food terrorist corporations. Wheat-dependent Africans do not grow their own wheat. African land is then used and abused by Caucasians to grow cash crops such as peanuts, cotton, sugarcane, rubber, cocoa, etc. Wheat is imported. The Africans' animal livestock industry is also made wheat dependent. Africans' land becomes enslaved by Caucasians. Africans on the undernourished wheat dependent diet in cities will fight each other while Africans in rural areas nutritionally starve to death. It is an institutionalized nutritional terrorist tactic to use food for the hunger programs, United Nations care packages, food relief agencies, and religious food programs to addict Africans to junk foods. The junk food is believed to stop the diseases that it causes. The Caucasians call it helping Africans. Caucasians use food to manipulate social problems, strife, disease, epidemics, conflicts, and decrease populations. They disguise their food terrorism as food gifts to the hungry. They are giving a gift of disease and death to the hungry. The food terrorists' processed wheat-centered diet increases acidity in the blood. The Caucasian diet of animal flesh, chicken, fetuses, and milk is highly acidic. The high acidic content of the blood is destructive to the bones, nerves, tissues, reproductive system, glands, and the brain. It destroys vitamins, minerals, and proteins. Eating large amounts of acidic white rice, sugar, and processed wheat flour degenerates the pineal gland. Processed wheat flour becomes manure at the beginning of the 30-foot digestive tract. It slowly travels along the digestive tract, spreading pollution throughout the body. Whole wheat becomes manure at the end of the digestive tract, the colon. The acidic Caucasian junk food diet causes chronic physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental fatigue. Acidic foods are constipating. Constipation is the leading cause of melanin deficiencies and 90% of all diseases. High acidity causes an increase in bacteria, infections, white blood cells, fibroid tumors, high blood pressure, impotency, high cholesterol, venereal diseases, hypersex drive, colds, learning disorders, heart trouble, kidney stones, violence, allergies, cancer, degenerative diseases, anxiety, nervousness, fear, anger, and cravings for junk food, drugs, and sugar. Historically, Caucasian food terrorists cause diseases that caused slaves to be physically handicapped. Physically handicapped prisoners of war were sold at cheap prices at refuse slave sales. Many slaves become physically handicapped or deformed because of undernutrition. Nutritionally caused diseases, work-related accidents, self-inflicted injuries, or severe torture. For example, slaves on slave ships often suffered from vitamin D or vitamin C deficiencies, which caused blindness. The victim would become blind because the eyeball would dry up. Many slaves would arrive to the Americas blind, crippled, crazy, or dead. Additionally, refuse slaves were sold and used for medical experiments, circuses, or sex experiments with animals. They were also used to demonstrate methods of torture or punishment to plantation slaves and helped to perpetuate a fear of whites. It was cheaper to use a refuse slave. A slave master's fear-inducing torture demonstrations included tying each leg of a slave to different horses, then making the horses run in different directions, which pulled the legs off the body. Pregnant slaves would have the baby cut from the womb and fed to the dogs. They would scalp the head of a male or hang him by his penis or boil a live slave. For a joke, a slave would be placed in a barrel that had nails driven in the sides, then rolled down a hill, causing puncture wounds to his body and eyes. The slave master considered this funny. In addition to these barbarous acts, slaves were made crippled by the food terrorist diet. Any slave who was too handicapped or diseased to be sold at the refuse sale was sold at the scramble sale. The scramble sale was a 2 for the price of 1 sale. Today, the refuse and scramble sales are called organ harvest companies. These companies sell Africans kidneys, eyes, livers, genetic cells, aborted body parts, melanin, bone marrow, and other body parts for experiments or transplants. People in civilizations are trained from childhood to adulthood to like and dislike certain foods. Food selection is culturally controlled. Each race has a different ability to see, hear, digest food, and taste food based on melanin content. Seeing, hearing, and tasting food is a different biochemical reaction and action that is based on melanin concentration in the body. In other words, Africans do not hear, see, or taste with a low degree of sensitivity as Caucasians. Added to this, culture orientates responses to stimuli so that an additional difference is added among races. The senses are bonded to the culture when the child is bonded to the mother. In Caucasian society, food tastes are trained and food selection is controlled by food businesses. The food terrorists select the foods that will be eaten and grown. They select the likes and dislikes of foods. In other words, Africans are brainwashed robots who are forced to eat junk food by the combined forces of Caucasian psychologists, chemists, infantile cartoon characters, teachers, religions, color therapists, music therapists, hypnotists, and sex therapists. Africans are trained to accept these practices and are trained to eat what they are told to eat. These sciences and therapists are used to design food containers and packages, food jingles, food tastes, food commercials, and subliminal persuasions and behavior controllers. The total effect of food marketing makes the consumer free to choose the wrong foods. The consumer is manipulated and addicted to foodstuffs. As part of the marketing strategy, illness is blamed on germs, not on junk food. It is part of the terrorists' tactics to ridicule any junk food addicted person who stops eating their chemical garbage. The ridicule and insults can come from friends, family, and strangers. The terrorists teach the junk food addict that getting sick, being sick, feeling sick is normal. They make the African ignorant of food warfare. Foods are loaded with drugs. In an indirect way, drugs are pushed through food. Food drugs have the chemicals that enslave the body in sickness and handicap the mind. It is difficult for the food junkie to understand or accept reality. Food terrorists make food addicting with chemicals and sugar, then claim that African people are freely choosing to eat the food that they want to eat. This is the same as addicting a person to alcohol or crack cocaine, then saying that because the addict keeps choosing to take the drug, they are exercising freedom of choice. The junk food addict is free to keep choosing junk food to eat because the terrorists are constantly creating the addiction. The terrorists will not turn off the addiction. Since the addiction is not turned off, they say the addict's constant consumption of drugged foods means that they like being addicted. The food chemical companies say if people did not like junk foods and dead flesh, they would not eat them. In other words, an alcoholic drinks alcohol because he likes alcohol, not because he is addicted to alcohol. The chemically controlled mind believes the food drug pushers' brainwashing and advertisements. The food addicted parents addict their children to food drugs, animal flesh, and sugar. There is always a food drug fix available. The sugar addict always has a candy bar, liquid sugar soda, sugary chewing gum, or some other form of sweets available. The food drug addict and the sugar addict do not know that they are addicted. The terrorist says that if the addict is stupid enough to like the addictive foods, then they should have the right to keep selling them the junk. A food drug addict is a living sacrifice to white supremacy. They are physical proof that the advertisements are successful. The mind and behavior altering drugs in the foods clone the African. The Caucasian government agencies, food relief agencies, food for the hungry religious groups give and sell junk food to starving and poor Africans. The government agencies such as the Department of Agriculture, Foreign Agriculture Service, the Food and Drug Administration, the Red Cross, and the United Nations give free demonstrations on how to prepare junk food and free samples in order to addict Africans. If white society seems concerned about Africans' health, it is merely a method of deceit used to destroy Africans' health. White terrorists use food to control and keep Africans sick. Sickness drains African people of energy. Sickness is a profitable business controlled and created by the disease industry. Sickness and white racism are the only things democratically given to all Africans. Human rights and civil rights are not given to African people, only sickness and white racism. The terrorists make Africans believe that natural vitamins, minerals, amino acids, herbs, or surgery or inoculations can protect the health of the body from diseases caused by junk foods. There is no miracle drug, herb, or therapy that can make junk food addicted Africans healthy. Natural foods are the only miracle medicine. Medicine is natural foods. Organic natural foods eaten raw or steamed and correct food combinations maintain wellness. Food terrorists use their Caucasian superstitions and myths to create horrible food concoctions. For example, the ritualistic eating of the grease or pus of the animal's corpse and the wearing of fur is believed to give the Caucasian the power of the murdered animal. Animal grease was ritualistically rubbed on the body to protect Caucasians from disease. Today, Caucasians use sheep grease. Historically, Caucasians did not believe in taking baths throughout the span of their life. They believed that eating or rubbing boar grease gave the strength of a pig, and deer grease gave one the ability to run like a deer. Rabbit grease was believed to give fertility. Grease from cooked Africans gave savage sexual ability. Cat grease protects one from mice, etc. They used the animal's rotten grease to make candles. These candles were believed to release the power of the animal's spirit. The candles, when burnt, gave off a foul odor and black smoke that would fill the hut or cave. The Caucasian believed that a breakfast of chicken fetus and plant seeds used as cereals regenerated the body. They also believed that cow's milk purified the body. Their breakfast foods were put together out of ignorance, not nutrition. The Caucasians used herbs on foods out of superstition. The ancient Caucasians believed that the cold season could be changed to a hot or warm season inside the body by using herbs. Their herbs served as irritants to the delicate skin of their constipated digestive tract. They called these herbs seasonings. The herbal irritants such as mustard seed and black pepper were popular in food concoctions. Many of the sauces poured on cooked animal flesh were derived from their ancient past. Historically, Caucasians would use a sauce made of strigil to season dead corpses. Strigil's sauce's main ingredient was the pus from a dead whale's intestine. It was similar to A1 sauce. They also liked rotten fish oil in sauces such as Caucasians like to eat the buttocks or thighs of dead cattle, chickens, turkeys, or pigs. They believe that muscle flesh of animals helps to make muscles in their bodies. Added to this, they believe that the hair from pigs used to make hair brushes could give strength to their hair. They also conduct spiritual rituals with animals. For example, the head of an animal was believed to possess intelligence and represent a gate to a higher evil or heaven. Often, they would put an apple or fruit on dead flesh to gain the ability to give spiritual rebirth. Consequently, the Caucasian would eat a pig's head with an apple in the mouth, or a goat or sheep's head with fruit in the mouth. In order to gain the birth of new strength and muscles, they would put fruit such as pineapple slices on a pig's ass and then eat it. They ate food because of superstitions and ignorance and never associated with nutrition, cleanliness, or health. Consequently, they did not wash their own bodies, vegetables, or the corpse of the animals that they ate. Their idea of cleaning an animal was to drain the blood from the carcass. They would eat dead animals' genitals, semen, ovaries, or cooked African people's sex organs in order to feel sexually aroused. The food terrorists still have insane attachments to foods that are deeply embedded in their subconscious minds and spirits and based on ignorance. The terrorists are predatory in their approach to food and exploit Africans with food. Predatory animals and predatory Caucasians capture and kill animals. Predatory terrorists capture the land and food supply, then kill the Africans with a junk food supply. Ironically, the Caucasians are the same with food. They capture the food by cultivation farming, then process the food, which kills the nutrients. Then they embalm the dead food with chemicals, and then they eat it. Caucasians capture African people and Africa's land. Then they preserve the African culture by imitating it. And then they destroy the African by seasoning, inferiorizing, and victimizing the black race. They then kill Africans with drugged foods. Terrorists have the same behavior towards Africans, land, and God as they have within themselves. They do not trust their own bodies and are in fear that their health will fall ill to disease at any moment. They mistrust their natural bodies. They mistrust God. They mistrust the spiritualization of food and totally mistrust Africans. Caucasians have self-hatred. Context of White Supremacy. Worst book ever. I am very excited. I won't say very, but this is one bit of good news. So we are about we're about 3/4, 75% of the way through with this book. We are going to go past the 300-page marker in today's text. I was absolutely ecstatic. I got so excited. I don't think I've been as enthusiastic about reading since we very started this book, way back in April or whenever it was. But man, oh man, I can see the finish line. Woo! And I think we got some graphics. I mean, we should be rolling, going through the finish line to the conclusion of the nutritional destruction of black people. Like, wow. What a lousy, repulsive book. Woo! I am thinking of really good things to read once this is done. I wish we had not read Invisible Man, because we could read that now, kind of cleanse my power. Yurugu. I'm thinking of things that are like top 5. Like, we'll have to think of something good to get this taste out of my mouth. Like, wow, absolutely reprehensible. One thing I'll share before we get to listeners' thoughts on the line or written in. The version of the book that I have that will be burned, the version of the book that I have, there's a piece at the end of the book that we're close to now about the author, and it's just a quick little section. It gives more information about Dr. Afrika. And the one portion that I thought was interesting, he's talking about some of his accomplishments and, what he does with his information to try to help black people. And he writes, he's famous for his in-depth knowledge of diet, health, healing techniques, herbs, supplements, history, and culture. He is reluctant to admit that he does have a Caucasian doctor of naturopathy diploma and was the first African-American naturopath to lecture before the World Vegetarian Congress. Now, I thought that was interesting because he has spent so much time in this book talking about how dumb and ignorant and stupid and crazy and inferior Caucasians are. They don't know anything. They don't know how to combine food combinations. They don't have any sort of electromagnetic vibration. They're just ignorant and stupid and inferior. He said it over and 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 over again. Black people are superior. Africans are superior. If that is the case, I said that from the very beginning. You got it on your website. University of the Anglo University in the United Kingdom. And that's not even, I don't think that's the same diploma. It may be, but in multiple places, website and the book, you list your credentials that you got from individuals classified as white. Now, if they're ignorant and stupid, why on earth would you need certification from somebody who is ignorant and stupid and crazy and insane if they don't know what they're talking about? And certainly about health and medicine, I thought they don't know what they're talking about. They're ignorant and stupid and crazy and insane. Certainly, You would not want to lecture in front of a group of people. Now, I have never been invited and suspect that I will not, even though I am a vegan, to the World Vegetarian Congress. I seriously doubt it. I'll check my email again before we go off the air, but I don't think Gus T is going to be featured on any panels, yoga and vegan eating, none of that. But if you are the first African American to be invited to speak there, I seriously doubt that the members, the board, the participants are going to be black people. I strongly suspect it would probably be a lot of folks classified as white. Again, if that's the case, why would you even accept such an invitation? Much less, why would that be something to brag about? Put in the book, my list of accomplishments. I'm just pointing out, what they call it, contradictions. Little bit of, what do they call it, being a little hypocritical, perhaps, which is rife in the system of white supremacy. That is what this system creates amongst everybody. Gus T, racist man, racist woman, victims of racism. But I'm just pointing that out, and in my view, you try to avoid that, resisting the urge to criticize other victims of racism. That way it's not, I know what I'm talking about, and you coons just got to get your act together. And even saying white people are dumb and stupid. Again, if they got the keys to your cell, until I'm smart enough to figure out to get that keys, they are more intelligent than I am about one thing, and that is how to unlock their cell door. And that is about the most important piece of intelligence that I need to be concerned about right now. That is the system of white supremacy. Anyway, the number to dial is 605-313-5164. The code 564943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. You can drop an email as well for folks who are not able to participate via phone, untiljustice@gmail.com. We will make sure to read. One of our investors already wrote in. Also, since we are close to the conclusion of the book, I'm absolutely elated. He has a section at the end where he gives out recommendations for books to read. So I started looking through to see what exactly we got here. And so I said, well, this should be important since I've been critical of this book. Worst book ever by far. I'm repulsed by it. Every page, it's going to be burned as soon as I finish. That, hey, we've had a book club for 11 years. And as I look at the suggested books, he says by African authors only. He spells African Afrikan, if that means anything to anyone in the listening audience. It means nothing to Gus T. So you recommend several books by Amos Wilson. I know many folks are fans of his. Awakening the Natural Genius in Black Children is one, and he also recommends Blueprint for Black Power. That's another one. Let's see. He recommends Dick Gregory, guest on the program 2 times, the late. Here's his book, Dick Gregory's Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat. Let's see. I was going to say he recommends Elijah Muhammad, but that's not what's on the page. So he recommends the book How to Eat to Live, Volume 1 and 2 by Elijah. I'm just going to read what's here, letter by letter. Muhalrunad. I don't know what that is. I think I've said many times, get an editor. If I had authored anything, if somebody was going to reference the context of white supremacy in their book, and we have been referenced in a number of books, if that means anything, it does not. And I looked, and they had Gus Z. Gatorade. Yes, thank you for my shout out. I will get Gus Gatorade and let him know that, he has been appreciated. I don't even know what that is. We can't even get Elijah Muhammad in the text correctly. He recommends Message in a Bottle by Alfred Coach Powell, former guest on the Cows, 2011. He also recommends Dick Gregory's Mother Nature. So he's quite Ayikwe Armand, The Healers. We read 2000 Seasons, prolific author, Mr. Armand. He recommends the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, action, and thought, speech, and/or actions for victims of racism, white supremacy. Neely Fuller Jr. How about that? Multiple-time guest on the program. No name calling is in that book recommended. No name calling, I think, is in there. Many people, it has been my experience, have either heard Mr. Fuller speak and/or read his book, but they still like to point out a coon from time to time. He also recommends Vaccines Are Dangerous by Curtis Cost, former guest on the Context of White Supremacy, and Mr. Cost's book, What is Safe in the Age of AIDS, If Only You Knew What They Aren't Teaching You. And finally, in the Cow's top 5, Dr. Marimba Ani Yurugu, which was the very first book we read in the book club. I thought that was important. As I said, we've had a book club for 11 years, and we've read a number of these books and/or had the authors as guests on our program. How we arrived at this point in 2020 for Gus T to conclude easily, like no competition, this is the worst book I've ever read. Hopefully, well, no reason to hope. I can see the finish line. We're almost done. Thank goodness. Woo! Watermelon time on the plantation. We will get to folks who have comments, questions, *61 if you have thoughts on the first portion of the reading. Let's see. Caller at 1823, retired firefighter. You're with us. I'll get other folks as I see hands.
Greetings. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, how you doing, sir? Thank you for taking my call. I'm a new caller. I've been listening to you for about 4 months. And I'm really uncomfortable with how you're speaking about Dr. Afrika. I think oftentimes when you read a book, what you don't get out of the book, someone else might get something else out of it. So you talk so ill of it, it might make another person not want to try to explore the book. So I think it's kind of inappropriate how you're speaking about it. Also, you said he was the first African American of what? What kind of association?
It's an author's note at the conclusion of the book. It reads, the first African-American naturopath to lecture before the World Vegetarian Congress.
Okay. And then he talks about how stupid white people is and such. That's how he gains that perspective of what he thinks about them. That's why he does that. When you're studying is not only about what makes you comfortable. Oftentimes, studying is about what makes you uncomfortable. Sometimes you get your best lessons being uncomfortable. And that's probably why he feels they're stupid. Also, I wanted to kind of explain when he meant the Black Liberation Army. I don't think he's speaking about an organization. I think he's speaking about armies created in Africa or put together in Africa to liberate Africa and to protect Africa, and how those armies are often trained by the people that subjugated them before. That's why he mentioned America, because many of the armies are trained by America, the French, Russians, the Asians now, and that's what he was saying, right? A lot of these books are written by our scholars, at the time when you read them, they might be a little confusing because they're new to you. But after some years of studying, and this is even true about the person you often bring up, Dr. Francis Presser Wilson, ISIS Papers, which was an excellent read. I read that book about 15 years ago, and I read Dr. Afrika's book about 15 years ago. And they both can be very confusing if it's new to you. I have people come to me often about Dr. Francis Presser Wilson who's telling me this is confusing. What you mean a slice of pizza can be a vagina? And what a lot of people don't understand with these books is that a lot of these elders weren't talking about the time. They were talking about the past of what these people were moving forward. So we have to be careful with this literature and not attempt to destroy it so fast. Because I guarantee you that after this book, maybe about 5-10 years, if you continue to study and do some reading, a lot of the things he said, you're going to go back and say, wow, I heard that somewhere. I heard that somewhere. So I think we should just be careful, in how we destroy a piece of literature. I think we have to be careful. And in terms of footnotes, not everybody puts footnotes in their books, especially scholars like Dr. Afrika and many of the other ones, because a lot of times the information they're giving you comes from their entire time of study. That means travels, taking these type of classes among people that make them uncomfortable, different conversations with other scholars and elders. And what happens is you begin to develop your own perspective. With what you begin to write, when you begin to write a book, what's put in that book is coming from you. It's coming from the totality of your learning. All the years of your travel, all those battles you had, all those uncomfortable times and spaces and exchanges. So as you finish this book, at the minimum, if you feel uncomfortable with it, you don't have to destroy it. Dr. Afrika helped me get rid of my asthma. He helped me to contain it. And is he crude? Absolutely. Is Dr. Francis Presser Wilson more poised? Absolutely. But that doesn't make one better than the other. It just makes it different. And if you look at all of the scholars that left us this information, they all were different. Not every teacher you had was nice to you. And some of the mean ones gave you the best lesson. I'll mute my line. Thank you for letting me speak.
You mute your line. Have you read this book, sir?
Yes, I have. I read that book about 15 years ago. Like
Okay.
I said, like Dr. Francis Presser Wilson's book also.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed. You said yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of typos.
Much obliged.
It could be a lot.
That's all I needed, sir. Thank you kindly. That's all I needed. We'll get to some of our other callers. And if you do have other commentary, if you want to hang out, I know you said you're going to mute your line, but if you want to hang out, I will give you an opportunity if you have more to share. But just, you said you were good for now.
I'm going to hang out.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hang out.
Much obliged, good sir. Retired firefighter, or other folks, if you have commentary to share, proceed.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings to everyone on the line. I almost fell out of the chair that I was sitting on in the very beginning of the program when you played that skit, Mr. Renegade, on the Black Liberation Army, the non-existent Black Liberation Army. But I would say more of the same of what I have been hearing. And I do think there are a lot of things that Dr. Afrika can contribute that was or presently that can be considered to be useful, but also what would be an improvement within that context is to with a potential reader, someone who wants to learn to the furthest extent of what they can achieve through learning from a book of his, is that as far as some of the rhetoric that I don't think is accurate, such as the idea of implying, he may not have meant to have that in mind, but a lot of the rhetoric, what I call rhetoric in the book, was implying on our enemy, white people who practice racism, white supremacy, are ignorant and stupid. And based on my studies, and I've heard the last caller mention about Dr. Frances Wellesley, and just plain old logic in itself, with the power that is induced into the global system of racism and white supremacy, I don't think that was accomplished by stupid people, by dumb people. They were able to observe perhaps what was going on as far as non-white people saying and doing something that was constructive and scientific. And in turn, they were able to, in a short period of time, based on their existence from my studies, able to copy it and use it to their best interests, whether their best interest was constructive or non-constructive. And I would say if he was going to write something in a book that's designed to assist non-white people to not only recover from this problems of terror that we've been through so many centuries, that's also included. That's also included in their ability to do those things and come up with basically, I would say, a much more clearer understanding on how that materialized and what suggestions on what we can do in order to get ourselves in the world out of this situation and neutralize this problem that exists, and I think is the global system of racism and white supremacy. That's all I'll say for right now. Let somebody else talk. Thank you.
Much obliged, retired firefighter. If other folks have commentary, *61, or you can email. We'll share. We have written commentary from one of our investors as well. I'll read a little bit of that now. Let's see, or I'll stop when we get to a part of the book that we haven't got to yet. So he writes, "Greetings, Gus. Number one, the author discussed the corrupt nature of medical care in a system of racism, white supremacy, which brings a lot of harm to non-white victims. This, of course, is a large part of the discussion on the cows. Absolutely. Number two, I do not understand what the author meant by the statement karma is the relationship of all to the many. I don't know what that means either. And we can pause from this book anytime in my entire life that I have heard anyone, white, non-white, male, female, child, anyone use the word karma, I have spiraled into confusion. I have no idea what anybody is talking about when they use the term karma. I do not use the term karma. But yeah, I caught that too. No idea. Don't even have a guess. Number 3. The author again emphasized his thoughts that Caucasians are mentally ill. Boy, did he ever. I am not sure that such a discussion is constructive in terms of dismantling the global system of racism, white supremacy. Number 4. The author states, in quotes, white race experiences pain from a history of self-abuse, deliberate murder of 200 million Africans, enslavement, and colonizing of Africans. This reminded me of the quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates that you often ask guests about. I think both statements are inaccurate. The quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates is, white people are often sincerely and greatly pained by racism. And I have said for years since that quote came out, that is not true at all. White people are not pained, guilty, sad, none of the above about how they have treated Negroes, Africans, any dark people in the known universe. They brag about it. Put it on their currency and such. Make holiday. We just had Memorial Day. They make holidays about it, man. They make holidays about abusing non-white people. Number 5. Constipation is the leading cause of melanin deficiencies and 90% of all diseases. Once again, I would like to see references on such a pronouncement. I'll stop there because I think the rest of his commentary drifts into part of the book that is coming up. So we'll come back to this once we do the second audio reading. Much obliged, folks, for writing in. Untiljustice@gmail.com. If you have commentary, if you're not able to call in, would like to dial in. One thing that I will offer enormous pushback for the person who dialed in, this is not VGQ because I have invested my life force where I could have been doing anything. I could have been watching I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, anything. For anybody to say that Gus T has discouraged people from this book, contraire, mon frere. This is one where if I didn't have a code, I would be doing some name calling. I read this book. There is no audio of this book or we be listening to it. So at minimum, because of Gus T, now a whole lot of people can hear a book that is not the easiest to find in print. So that would kind of offset, wow, people might be discouraged from checking out this book. You can listen to it right here. I could have slammed this, which is what I wanted to do. Slam this book immediately. Let's pick something else because it's trash. We've toiled through it, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to be honest because I'm not going to toil through something that I think is trash and pretend that it's not. I'm going to be honest to what I'm seeing here. That's not logic at all. I love it. I said this before. I hate reading a book to sit back and say, man, I wish somebody would have the audacity to call in and say that this is logical and constructive, what we're reading. Flip back to page, let's see, I could pick a whole lot of them, but flip back to page 106. And again, to remind folks, we're not reading this book as a tribute to Dr. Afrika. We're in the middle of a global health crisis. They have said for months now, it looks like there might be a connection between COVID-19, obesity, what they call diet-related illnesses. That's why we're reading this book now. There should be a lot of constructive information for people who are in the middle of a health crisis that they can easily assimilate so that they will do what the cover says, not end up like dead Negroes who ate themselves to death. This book fails miserably to provide that sort of information in a direct, practical manner. We're in the middle of a health crisis. I do not want to read a book that I'm going to have to marinate on and hope I understand in 15 years. That's total nonsense and a waste of time for a health crisis. Now let's go to 106. Now he says, one of my favorite parts of a trash book. The physical or mental similarities between the black and white races do not make them of like humanity or like in approach to health. For example, one can identify the many similarities or commonalities between the organizational structure, training, and discipline of the United States military and the African liberation armies. However, their similarities do not make them united in purpose or united as one. They are by definition and belief totally against each other. Now again, this is pretty specific. Now even if what you said, he's talking about African liberation armies on the continent, even if that's true, there is no such outfit on the continent that compares in any way, shape, form with the United States military. If anybody can pick out any such outfit, I would like to know what it is. Where is that outfit on the continent that's run by black people? African Liberation Army, maybe it's called something else, and it's comparable to the United States military outfit. What are we even talking about? That's what I mean. Like, we got to be logical about things. Now, we can look over that and say, oh, that's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'm ignorant. This is one that I need another 15 years to ponder on to be able to figure out which location this is. I have not found it yet. And this is the type of material we do not need, especially in the middle of a health crisis. Logic. Next. Now, on 247, and again, this is throughout the text. I could pick a whole lot of examples. This is why I've said this throughout, and you even conceded yourself. There are a lot of typos. If we're talking about material that you need to sit around, maybe you need to think on, maybe some of the ideas are new, clarity would be really important. It shouldn't be that I'm reading a book where the word mortality and morality is confused. It shouldn't be that I'm reading a book where the typos and mistakes are so bad that I have difficulty comprehending what's been written. You can't even spell Elijah Muhammad's name correctly, and it's not even like one letter off, like way off for the honorable, they say, Elijah Muhammad. We can't even get in the ballpark of spelling his name correctly. Same thing I said last week. Now, how much time was really invested in proofing and editing this book? Continue. I didn't even get to this week. Let's get to some of the content from this week. And now, even let me get one more pause in, because people love to do that, where you might have a difference of opinion, and they will suggest that you're ignorant. You haven't been exposed to this information before, which sometimes is true. I'm not the smartest person ever. There is no environment. Even if I'm in a class with kindergartners, I am not the smartest person there. That being said, on the subject of eating correctly, I am not totally ignorant. I just said I am plant-based. I've been totally plant-based for a couple years now, and was plant-based before for several years. Doesn't qualify me as an expert. I never claimed to be. I just said I looked through the books that he recommended. We've had a number of these folks as guests on the program to talk about food, some of them directly, and other folks who've come on the program to talk about food. We have actual nutritionists, Dr. Ruby Lathan, who's been a repeat guest on this program for over a year. So I'm not exactly unexposed to a lot of this information. I've heard people talk about not eating white sugar. In fact, he mentions William Duffy's book, Sugar Blues. We did a whole book report on that program on this broadcast. I'm saying not all that not to brag. I'm not an expert. I am not ignorant about many of the concepts that he talks about in this book. I am not ignorant about reading and reading content for clarity and comprehension either. We've had a book club for 11 years. The material in this book, because of the typos, the name calling, and the lack of focus and clarity. How do you have a book that's supposed to be about food and we drift off into talking about how dumb and ignorant white people are and sex orgies? Wait a minute. I was trying to get spinach and not go to McDonald's. Why are we drifting off into African Liberation Army, whatever that is, wherever that is? How are we drifting off into all of this? This is the type of time wasting. Maybe other people, if you have time to waste, if you're looking to make a critical change, again, in the middle of a health crisis, and you're looking to make critical changes in your life, like right now, maybe you're the type of person that has 15 years to hope that that information sets in a correct manner that you can apply. That is not Gus T. Renegade. There is no way you should be reading a book for 2 months that we've read about 75% of it, and I can't really say that I have picked up much practical information that I can apply. There's not even enough detail when he talks about you shouldn't consume nightshades. Why? There's no reference. You don't go into any detail. You drift off into other subject matters. That is not helpful. That is not allowing people to apply information in a practical manner, and that is very different from meeting Dr. Afrika or any other person directly, where they can talk to you and give you information and confirm that you're understanding and you can ask questions. All I'm relying on is this text. Like I said, this is not an evaluation of Dr. Afrika's life and time. I'm just looking at this book and making an evaluation. Is this something that I can use? It's not even logical. I haven't even got to the name calling yet. The portion from this week, let's see. Anything this week was, so much of it was just white people are ignorant and stupid. Again, same thing the listener said. I think we heard it a few times. If we're in a system where white people dominate you in all areas of people activity, how much value is there to talking about how dumb and stupid and ignorant white people are? Is that even logical? Those are two. Those, I'm just putting question marks on both of those. Listeners can take those with you. You can think about it, because Gus T could be talking, crazy here. But just think about it. How logical is that? They dominate you in all areas of people activity. You got to hope and beg that they let you get a mask. Hope and beg that they let you go out of your house and go back to work. If they dominate you in all areas of people activity all over the world, how dumb and ignorant are they? Questions. You can just think about those. From this week. And it's just so poorly well written. I said that consistently. Like, there's no focus. Like, to just, this is not even, what are we even talking about? Like, this is like a psychoanalysis of white people. Like, if you want to do that, that's, cool in the gang, but that is not, I just don't understand how doing all of this psychoanalysis of white people, how that keeps Mr. and Mrs. Negro from eating themselves to death, just to hear that white people are dumb and crazy. So when I sit down for dinner time, white people are dumb and crazy, and I'm just going to eat the same thing that I ate before. Let's see. Would have rather been watching I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, or anything else. Yeah, I'll pause there. Absolute nonsense. Let's see. I'll check to see if other folks have comments to share. Any of the other folks who dialed in have commentary. Granted, folks are satisfied for the time being. Same thing I said last week. Have no problem standing on my square. Oh, did you have commentary, sir?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Sheesh, gosh, you went in on me, buddy.
Oh, and that's another thing. You said that you were talking about Dr. Afrika. I am not. If it was a white person, I'd probably ask for a retraction. I don't know anything about Dr. Afrika. He was a guest on the program. That's about all I could tell you. I never met him personally. I haven't done any research on his life and times. This is an evaluation. Same thing I had to say before. This is a book club. I am evaluating a book. There's no purpose to having a book club if we're just going to read it and pretend this is the best thing I've ever read. Next, we shouldn't have a book club.
I wouldn't say you have to say it's the best thing you ever read. It's not, according to you, it's not the best thing I ever read. And it didn't take me 15 years to get the book. Even when Dr. Francis Cus Wilson's book could be very interesting to people also. And it didn't take me 15 years to get that book either. And in the middle of this type of crisis, Nutricide is not a good book to read, right? It's not a logical choice. It really isn't. If you would have asked me, I would have said, nah, I don't Nutricide. I mean, you're not going to enjoy that book for this time. You know, it's a crisis. That book is more if you're just studying, it's just something you should read. That's it. It's not for a particular crisis. So it wasn't a logical choice. And I wasn't trying to attempt to.
Hang on one second. I need that one more. Can you just repeat what you said one more time?
It's not a logical choice for this crisis.
Woo! Can I get it one more time? One more time.
Yeah, it's not a logical choice for this crisis.
I'm satisfied. Thank you, kindly.
Yeah, it's not a COVID-19 book. It's not. I wouldn't have told you to use this book for that. I wouldn't have did that. And I wasn't trying to disrespect you by telling you you're ignorant. I was just saying that none of us has read every book. So it's just this book might not be something you're connected to now, or your readers might not be connected to now. That doesn't make the book trash, as you're saying. I mean, that's it. I'm mute my line.
Not a logical choice for a crisis.
COVID-19.
Woo! And I'm subtracting COVID-19. The same thing Andrew Young said. The sickness, the crisis, is white supremacy. The same thing I've said. If we had started reading this book in February of 1997, I would have said this book is trash. We'd started reading this book in 2005. I'd have said this book is trash. 2010, trash. Anytime that you are attempting to follow logic, trash. It just happens to be double whammy extra trash to be reading it in the middle of this when they have said repeatedly around the world, looks like diet-related issues might be connected to this, might make you more susceptible, they say. Comorbidities, they say. At that time, a book that's supposed to be about, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Negro. Oh, and that's another thing. The reason this book is trash is not because I'm not connecting with it or not comfortable. That's not it at all, sir. The reason this book is trash is because of the typos. It's not funny. We're in a crisis. It's not funny at all. The reason is because of the typos, the sloppiness, the poor editing, the lack of references, the lack of practical applicability, the name calling. I got a long list. Nowhere on that list. Hang on a second. Nowhere on that list is this book is trash because I'm not comfortable with it. That's not on the list at all. I've been very explicit, page numbers and all. And again, this is a book I'm reading. I'm having to sit through it multiple times. This is not just a one-time thing for Gus. This is like misery. Like I'm going to be punished in the middle of all of this for not making a logical choice during the middle of a health crisis.
Yes. Now you said it right.
There we go. There we go. Make logical choices. If you learn nothing else, make logical choices. Logic is critically important. Man, woo! Did you have anything else, sir?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. Retired firefighter, anybody else? We all good? We can move on to audio too?
Yeah, I would say that for a large part of his speaking career, which I'm not fully aware of him, but a lot of the names that I've heard that was centered around with him in speaking, the things that a lot of the speakers would be saying, what the rhetoric was very popular. And it basically came down to making black people, quote unquote, feel good, from someone who is taking the time to do this research. This research is past research, and some of these things that a lot of us have never heard before. And it sounded, for the most part, miraculous or something like that. And on the other hand, to kind of balance it off, I guess. That may be a wrong word to say. It would be that, white people are just stupid. and whatnot, and what you prior to you coming to hear me and what I have to say, you probably thought that they had something of importance, and it's not important. They stole it all, and as if though if they, I wouldn't deny that, that they stole. They do a lot of stealing, but they made some use of it. Of course, it's not going to be to our best interest under the system of racist white supremacy, but nevertheless. And all of those things are I think it's vital, important, if I'm going to write a book or stand in front of some people, non-white people especially, on a subject, that I better be real sure that I am as accurate as I possibly can be. Vitally important. That's how crucial it is, because racist codification is razor sharp. That's all I'm saying. It is razor sharp in what they say and do to promote and maintain and now refine the system of racist white supremacy. That's it.
Much obliged, retired firefighter. So we're in the section on food terrorists. This is kind of a larger section, so we're kind of picking up in the middle. I'm just glad we're getting close to the finish line. If you have comments and you did not get to share, just make notes. We should have ample time once the second audio segment concludes. Worst book ever. Not can't even spell Elijah Muhammad's name correctly. I'm sure that was a typo, but I mean, editor. Context of White Supremacy, audio segment number 2. The food terrorists use the same predatory behavior as they did during invasions of Africa, during slavery and colonialism. During slavery, all foods, clothing, discipline, and religion came from the slave master. After slavery, Africans became wage slaves or sharecroppers. Wage slaves earn only enough money to survive and always stay in debt. Sharecroppers bought food, machines, and clothing on credit. They paid their debts and rent by giving a large share of their crops to Caucasians. They bought all their goods from the overpriced company store. The Caucasians used the capitalist system. Capitalism is a Caucasian money ritual whereby they steal from the consumer. They steal by selling cheap goods made by exploiting cheap labor at high prices. They then put high interest rates on credit. Caucasian money rituals and ceremonies are called finance, marketing, economics, and business. These money rituals and ceremonies use deceit, stealing, lies, sex, exploitation, homosexuality, cheap labor, drugs, spiritual perversion, immorality, and dysfunctional families. An African who attempts to participate in Caucasian money ceremonies or rituals must follow the unwritten and unspoken rules of dishonesty, mistrust, deception, and ungodliness. Caucasian money transactions are exclusive and not inclusive of Africans, white only. An African is an alien in Caucasian money transactions. Africans are a negative drive for Caucasians and are systematically rejected and punished by Caucasians for participating. For example, Africans who accumulate wealth or earn high salaries cannot openly support African rebellions, African revolutions, or militant groups. If they do show any support, they will be killed, jailed, have their character assassinated, or in some way be punished. African money in Caucasian ceremonies can only be invested or spent on approved Caucasian concerns. Africans naturally think that money transactions reflect God, the family, and should go to the highest spiritual good. Caucasians view money transactions as separate from spiritual good. Therefore, the Caucasians' destruction of land, life, food, and other people's wealth is not considered because it produces a selfish capital gain and a profit for a few. All profit is considered good. Profit is merely used as a form of white supremacy. Today, the slave master's new company store is the multinational corporation. Multinational corporations own the wage slave, the factories, banks, credit cards, prisons, college, religions, militaries, governments, media, hospitals, clothing manufacturers, farms, pharmaceutical cartels, and food stores. They own the taste buds. Addicted taste buds only eat what the multinational companies tell them to eat. Junk food addicted Africans educate themselves to work for the new slave master multinational corporations. The African participates in white culture's diet as if it were their own African cultural diet. The African is addicted to slave plantations' soul food, garbage diet of foods such as fried rice, fried okra, fried chicken, greasy overcooked green vegetables, pig's ass, chitlins, pig hoofs, salt, vinegar, deadly food combinations such as milk, grease, vinegar, salt, sugar, chicken, fetus, toxic nightshade plants, onions, celery, and overcooked demineralized potatoes with nutrientless lettuce called potato salad. This soul food diet and the Caucasian junk food diet is deadly. The choices for Africans are to stop eating the soul food and junk foods or die. The food terrorist armies used many tactics. They burned food crops, homes, raped men, women, and children, and lynched Africans to make them abandon their farmlands. After the Civil War, the United States government gave land to Africans. Then President Andrew Jackson declared that the land was illegally given to Africans. He ordered the Africans to move from their land. The Africans armed with guns refused to move. The government declared an unofficial war against Negroes and sent the United States Army in to attack Negroes. The Army attacked, murdered, raped, lynched, terrorized, and burnt food crops and homes. The Africans who were not killed either had to become sharecroppers or buy the land. The Africans who bought the land eventually lost it due to taxes. The Africans became landless peasants who had a choice of starving to death as wage slaves or moving to northern ghettos. The Negro became an exploitable landless class of peasant wage slave laborers. This same food terrorist tactic was repeated over and over in Africa and anywhere the Caucasian wants to steal land and labor. The food terrorist uses Caucasian-created starvation as a means to market their tactics. It has never been a case of Africans starving due to lack of farmland, lack of food, or overpopulation. It has always been a case of Caucasian food terrorists causing starvation in order to disguise their forced geopolitical control of land and food. Food terrorist thugs such as the United States Department of Agriculture, Foreign Agriculture Services, Department of Commerce, and the Agency of International Development use wheat to destroy African grain farmers. They use Public Law 480 to switch Africans and Africans' livestock to an acidic wheat-centered diet. Basically, the Caucasians' laws and agreements with each other, government control agencies, judicial systems, alliances, and consumer protection agencies amounts to the insane controlling the insane. For example, weather modification agencies are out of control. Weather modification is the process of changing the weather with concentrated heat, radiation, or chemicals. Chemicals are sprayed into clouds to force them to retain more water, which results in rain. However, making rain in one area causes a violent interruption of the natural weather cycles. This causes the negative rebound effects of droughts, hurricanes, forest fires, insect attacks on food crops, and people and crop destruction. Weather modification companies' reactions to bad weather is to chemically change the weather, which causes another negative rebound in the weather. They also use the weather in order to destroy each other's crops in order to create food shortages, which result in increased profits. The weather modification companies have weather wars among themselves. The National Science Foundation has stated that billions of dollars and an uncertain number of deaths caused each year by weather modification. These companies are controlled by the out-of-control government, in essence, the insane controlling the insane. Food terrorists use weather and food as a weapon. This weapon creates diseases and death in the name of money or profit. Profit and paper money are the Caucasians' way of worshiping white supremacy. Caucasian paper money are their government's paper credit cards and represent money stolen from their citizens. Their currency is valueless, and they let the citizens pretend that it has value. Caucasians are insane and pretend that they are sane. They do not have any history of sane spiritual behavior with Africans or any colored people. Their terrorist use of food indicts them, and history verifies this indictment. Historically, European civilization exploited Africans with food. The Portuguese invaded Africa, burnt homes, raped men, women, and children, and destroyed crops in order to force Africans to work on peanut, coffee, cotton, and other quick cash crop plantations. This tactic of rape, pillage, and burn was used in many African countries. The United Nations Environment Program and the International Crop Research Institute for arid tropics, stated that the land, crops, and food supply are lost forever. Terrorist destruction of farms and farmers forces Africans to be wheat dependent. The combination of this disease-causing diet and the disease-causing chemical pollutants called medicine destroys the so-called immune system. Food has been the most reliable weapon the Caucasian has used to control Africans. The African becomes addicted to junk food and is mentally and physically controlled by the addiction and by diseases until death by Nutricide. The Caucasian food terrorist uses the African's denial of disease to addict them to junk food, drugs, sex, Caucasian, religious, and white racism. Food addiction indicates a failure to accept self. Failure to accept self is denial. Africans fail to accept their racial and cultural superiority. This superiority and spiritual obligations to ancestors demands a spiritual revolution for freedom. Denial is used to hide pain, the emotional pain of being defeated people. An enslaved and colonized people has never been confronted or resolved. Denial, disease, relies upon the continuous inability to face true reality. True reality is substituted with a false reality. Denial allows its victims to victimize self by accepting white reality as an African reality. Denial is a disease forced upon Africans by Caucasians. The Caucasians' psychotic reality denies their physical, mental, cultural, and spiritual inferiority by creating a fantasy craziness called white supremacy. They cannot and will not accept their inferiority and criminal deeds against Africans. If whites accepted their crimes against Africans, then self-punishment or suicide would be the only logical action for whites to take. Denial is the basis for the slave and slave-master relationship. It is a failure of a people's group personality to allow their diet and self to be continuously enslaved by primitive whites. Africans have failed to accept that Caucasians are insane, and moments of sanity. Denial of the mental illness of the Caucasian race supports denial of the trauma of slavery, which supports junk food addiction. Addiction is the failure to accept reality. An African free of the emotionally crippling impact of slavery colonialism realizes that Caucasian foods are an extension of the insane Caucasian worldview, a worldview based on ignorance, superstitions, addiction, and a mistrust of nature. Denial is a silent weapon used to destroy the Africans' ability to heal themselves from the pain of slavery colonialism. Africans in denial use food to satisfy the sensual taste buds and the hurt of slavery. Food not only becomes a form of pleasure, it also can help soothe and pacify the ugly pain of denial. Food terrorists must maintain the African's denial disease in order to maintain white supremacy. They use nutritional Uncle Toms such as Bill Cosby, Anita Baker, Spike Lee, Herbie Hancock, Whitney Houston, Michael Jordan, B.B. King, or fictitious nutritional Uncle Toms such as Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima in order to keep Africans addicted to junk food, denial, and fear. These nutritional Uncle Toms are victims of the food terrorist. Fear combined with denial are the psychological devices used to sell food. Caucasian food terrorists believe that the more rich food you eat, the more health you will attain. Health is associated with quantity of food, not the natural quality of food. Poor quality processed junk foods, dairy products, and animal flesh cause nutritional starvation. They are starvation foods. These foods cause the body to rot. The muscles get hard, the bones get soft, and the teeth rot and fall out. The feet, armpits, and body stink with foul fumes caused by constipation or pollution. The skin wrinkles, the eyes and ears weaken, circulation decreases, and physical degeneration caused by drugged foods is called old age. The rich foods are greasy, oily, and heavily seasoned with herbal irritants. They also contain high amounts of acidic cooked meats and various cooked concoctions with stupid combinations of sugar and starch or starch and protein. They are worshipped as good food. Caucasians believe that if you miss one of these rich meals or miss any meal, you will lose energy and evil bacteria or virus will attack your body, causing a disease. They eat in fear of these attacking germs. Caucasians and the Africans who nutritionally imitate them have a compulsive eating disease which is based on a history of famines and starvation from the Ice Age era, post-Ice Age era, and Cold era. During the Cold Age, Caucasians started inhaling the fumes of their own bowel movements and sleeping with dogs, goats, or pigs in order to use the foul odors as a sort of antibiotic evil spirit. They would drink, have bowel movements, and bathe in the same water that they used to cook food. cleanliness was not related to health, but related to myths and fears of nature and the belief that nature or an evil spirit was always attacking them. Their pagan rituals of fighting evil germs with antibacterial creams, lotions, soaps, mouthwash, toothpaste, deodorants, douches, and cleansers is unscientific. They also kill germs by sanitation. They sterilize cows' milk, pots, surfaces, clothes, dishes, and utensils, forgetting that sterilization only lasts a few minutes before germs return. Africans adopt the Caucasian insane notion of killing evil germs and the Caucasian medical rituals and ceremonies and become twice addicted to ignorance. They are attached to the Caucasian insanity by the Caucasian belief system and by the denial of the slavery trauma. The Caucasian fear and denial of reality makes their medical rituals and ceremonies seem logical. For example, they believe that taking a poison that is against life, anti-biological, is sensible. It is fear that supports denial and denial that supports denial, which is the foundation of the addiction to junk foods. The Caucasian marketing tactics and mind do not separate the rich and the poor, slave and slave master, technology and pollution, food and disease, peace and war, sex and love, or good and evil. Their mind bonds and mixes ideas and behaviors together that are not related. Food is mixed with politics, wars, economic profit, chemicals, pollution, violence, etc. Africans only see food as a connection to the spirit world and nutrition. Food to Caucasians is a weapon to control and terrorize. The African connection to food has to be a reaction to the food terrorist, white racism, the race war, white supremacy, and the disease industry as one in the same problem. Caucasians do not and cannot separate tactics or actions with their melanin albino brain. Caucasian food terrorists have to be destroyed because it is part and not separate from industry, white racism, white supremacy, and Caucasian civilization. Food terrorism is part of a chain reaction of subtle terrorist factors that react to each other and support each other. In this chain reaction, Africans are mentally and socially terrorized. Subtle terrorist tactics keep the African's mind crazy. For example, the institution of banking is alien to most Africans. Banks are not a building or business, but a social institution created by a race to support that race exclusively. A bank is a coalition of people who think, feel, and behave the same. Institutions require trust, honesty, spirituality, and reliance upon each other. Ex-slaves and colonized Africans are seasoning to mistrust each other. The terrorists continue to maintain an atmosphere of mistrust or seasoning. African people were made crazy by seasoning during slavery. Seasoning is a conditioning process in which slaves were made to recite positive affirmations about the goodness of slavery and the white race and negative verses about the black race. Combined with performing the same menial task daily, the seasoning could last from a few months to years for chattel slaves. Seasoning slaves were indoctrinated constantly to mistrust other slaves and to feel that niggers ain't no good and cursed by God. Modern seasoning occurs when Africans are trained by food commercials to sing positive music jingles and or recite positive slogans about harmful junk food. The constant use of seasoning by food terrorists is apparent in banks. Africans are taught to mistrust each other. Consequently, Africans cannot collectively save money and lend money to each other because they do not trust each other. They are seasoning to put money in the slave's master's bank. It is anti-African to use Caucasian banks. Caucasian banks are white nationalist banks because they support Caucasian businesses that terrorize blacks. White nationalists share the common disease of white supremacy. Ironically, during the post-chattel slavery, Africans had savings clubs in which each member would contribute part of his pay each month. Each member would get a loan of $1,000 or more every 6 months. These savings clubs became a part of burial societies and churches that no longer exist. However, the contemporary seasoning process of the terrorist still exists. Terrorists must continue to make the African insane. An insane Negro is nutritionally suicidal and an alien to his own culture. Nutritional suicide occurs when Africans pay money for disease and death-causing junk foods. A terrorized African sees food terrorism as separate and divided from white racism, politics, jails, special education, and disease. If the African is divided, then he is conquered. A conquered mind is an alien, seasoning, confused, crazy, and terrorized mind. The Caucasian teaches the craziness that an African in a Caucasian-controlled society has freedom of choice. Freedom of choice implies that you have free will. Africans have the freedom to follow Caucasian rituals and ceremonies, but no control over them. Results can only be realized by a group. Free will requires that a group have ownership and control over resources and the military power to control the group. Therefore, an African can seek justice in the judiciary system by following legal rituals and ceremonies. However, Caucasians as a group control the judiciary system. Therefore, justice can be denied an alien. Similarly, Africans are free to choose different types of Caucasian junk foods, but they lack the power to ensure that it does not contain toxic poisons. It is a terrorist tactic to maintain seasoning. Africans are kept seasoning by various subtle means. For example, the Ebonics languages of Africans are labeled as Black English, Negro dialect, Gula, or Bad English. Ebonics is the language that Africans speak. It may use English words, but it is distinctly African conceptualizations, word order, rhythms, and consonant clusters at the end of words. The Caucasians speak a German-derived language which they call English. They do not label English as a German dialect, Bad German, or White German. English is labeled as a language. Mislabeled and negative connotations applied to Ebonics help to make the African and alien confused and terrorized. Alien properties and stores in the ghetto are owned by Caucasians or their puppet racial groups. However, terrorists blame the creation of the ghetto and poverty on Africans. The terrorists are in the poverty business, junk food business, and the disease industry because it is economically and psychologically profitable. Profit is anything that supports white supremacy. The only way for Caucasians to make a profit from Negroes is to keep them seasoned and crazy and terrorized. A pregnant teenager is a tool of the terrorists. Teenage pregnancy is labeled as hypersexual, immoral, and a symptom of a dysfunctional black family. This increases stressors in the African community. Stress, hypertension, violence, fear, and denial cause an increase in junk food consumption. Historically, the Caucasian population in America was started by teenage pregnancy. Slavery was maintained by teenage pregnancy, unwed mothers, and so-called bastard African and mulatto children, child labor, white men raping African girls and boys, and the white women's rape of African boys and girls. In fact, all Africans married by Caucasian ceremonies and religions are unwed and have bastard children. Teenage pregnancy is not the problem. It is the social conditions created and maintained by terrorists and aliens that are the problem. Social terrorism cascades and perpetuates food terrorism. For example, Africans who suffer from seasoning, stress, hypertension, fear, denial, and violence eat more junk food. They are easily made more addicted to the chemicals in food drugs. These chemicals not only alter the thinking but also cause retarded genital growth, infertility, and sexual identity problems. This adds to the seasoning of the African community, as blacks fear blacks. This influences seasoning, causing Africans to identify with Caucasian culture. Alien Africans label themselves as Americans. American is a mislabel that denotes slavery, murder, rape, stealing, and white nationalism. Caucasians invaded Turtle Island, renamed the island America, and themselves Americans. Africans cannot be Americans because they never voluntarily gave up their African citizenship. The mislabeled American assumes that Africans paid for their transportation to America as slaves and voluntarily gave up their African citizenship. Seasoning: Africans celebrate American holidays, eat American junk foods, and contribute to the tension of terrorism. Africans miseducated in Caucasian schools and colleges become aliens. These institutions support the myth and lies of white supremacy. They fantasize that the European culture's idea of academics is the only type of academics of value. Africans in these Caucasian schools are majoring in white studies. White studies alienates the mind of an African from African culture. Aliens believe that health means the absence of obvious diseases. They go to optometrists who wear eyeglasses and dentists who have no teeth. They are trained to be blind to contradictions and confusion. Aliens believe in the contraction that homosexuals can have sexual intercourse. Only a man and a woman can have sexual intercourse. Homosexuals merely masturbate each other. Aliens believe that sexual intercourse means the same as love. They refer to having intercourse as making love. These seasoned Africans have difficulty adapting holistically to African culture. Their attempts to adapt cause stress, confusion, and terrorism to other Africans. Terrorists destroy holistic African sex principles in order to destroy harmonious relationships. Aliens use the terrorist allopathic drugs to correct sexual infertility, reproduction problems, and diseases. They are cloned with junk foods, junk medicine, junk religions, and junk language. Aliens use the language they are seasoning with by Caucasian media. Their language is based on the movie rating categories of parental guidance, and restricted. Consequently, they believe adult language means the use of curse words, profanity, and obscenity. African words are I respect God in you, I honor your presence, etc. Often, cloned Africans indicate the words boyfriend and girlfriend to indicate a sexual relationship. In African culture, a sexual relationship is based upon a mating with God and families. They refer to each other as a mate. Caucasian language concepts maintain seasoning, resulting in a mind too crazy to stop eating junk foods and too crazy to stop seasoning. The aliens who victimize African history, ancestors, and the raw food diet are seasoning. These aliens believe that their great ancient culture became weak, had serious social problems, religious conflicts, too much humanity, tribalism, and egotism, which caused Africa to self-destruct. It is within the natural cycle that all creations adjust, readjust, and change. The exploitation of a people in their changing process is a crime. Caucasians are guilty of committing crimes against Africans in the process of change. The Caucasians have committed the crime and then blame the victim. In other words, a woman who is raped is blamed for being raped, victimizing the victim. Terrorism is a disease trait of Caucasian civilization. And sexual intercourse with Caucasians and mixed up children help to maintain seasoning and Nutricide. African ecology and Caucasian pollution. The world's first ecologists in recorded history were Africans of the Nile Valley. Ecology is man's relationship to the environment. Humans must relate to their mother and father and the spirit before they can relate to the environment. Africans learned harmony and human relationship, which is called spirituality. Therefore, African ecology is merely an extension of the relationship between their mother and mother-father God. Africans did not pollute or destroy the harmony or nature because to do so is a form of self-destruction. Pollution of the earth is historically an act of Caucasian civilization. In Caucasian cosmology, the planet Earth exists to serve their needs. It is not a give-and-take relationship. It is not a spiritual relationship. Therefore, they treat Mother Earth as a slave. Caucasians rape the land of resources, mutilate and pollute the air, water, soil, sound, vision, and perverted natural light reflected from buildings, glass, cars, concrete, clone and exterminate plants, insects, animals, and people. The earth, outer space, and Africans have become polluted garbage dumps of Caucasian technology. African civilization demonstrated the correct holistic behavior relationship to have between Ta in Ake Bulan in Kuliland, in the nation of Kemet, the Hyksos, and other Europeans who invaded or traded with Africans were called vile, primitive, and wretched. Caucasians had a limited vocabulary, did not bathe, were flea-infested, practiced group sex, raped, stole, murdered, and were bedwetters, drank pus to cure disease, had no religions, were disorganized liars, urinated in the streets, were superstitious and ignorant, believed the earth was flat, and were constantly diseased. Their behavior among themselves and negative treatment of the land caused Africans to pity them and to want to help them become spiritualized and ecology-minded. The African worldview sees each of us as custodians or servants of God's land. The land is a living spiritual gift from God. Loving the environment and earth is Irapi Hati A for Africans. Africans' bodies are the payroll that ecologically resides on Ta. We give to Ta and Ta gives to us. This is homeostasis that African culture has taught human beings. The Ta is viewed as a spaceship that carries us on our journey day by day and by night through the heavens so that we can rise in God's presence. Africans who believed their spirit would resurrect in the West are called Osirians. They were believed to have gone west to be born anew in the sun God's presence. They were called Westerners. The Caucasians' ecology is not based on spirituality and a relationship with God. They take all that they can from the earth, and Africans for economic profit, giving back pollution. This is a contrary to the ecological wisdom of the human body. Junk food is processed and against the ecological wisdom of the body. For example, vitamins, minerals, fibers, and proteins are milled or chemically taken out of the whole wheat, brown rice, and sugarcane, leaving a pasty, gooey, polluted, poisonous drug. Basically, the food factories have machines that stimulate the liver, pancreas, stomach, and intestine. These machines digest the food, and the end result of the processing a food is a bowel movement. Technically, a processed food is synthetic manure. Eating processed food is against the body's wisdom, rhythm, and ecology. The normal ecology of the body follows a solar and lunar cycle, melanin rhythm, and allows each organ to use the food's nutrients. The end product of whole food digestion is manure. Processed junk food starts off in the stomach as manure. This is contrary to the body's natural ecology. A junk food diet causes toxic chemicals, toxic gas, rotting muscles and bones, toxic electromagnetic vibrations, and pollution that destroys the body, resulting in disease and death. The spiritual nature of foods is alive in the whole foods and is destroyed by polluted junk foods. An African person claims the spiritual nature of life and foods by eating whole foods. The spiritual rights of food as spirit is ignored by Caucasian nutrition, science, and medicine. In their nutrition, medicine, and science, they use chemical rituals and ceremonies. So-called experiments and scientific methods are also used to justify destroying natural foods and Africans. Caucasian science reflects the Caucasian worldview and behavior. For example, any human right that is not claimed by violence is not respected. The spiritual nature of plants does not allow force and violence against people. The Caucasians do not respect the vegetable's spiritual rights. They apply the same human ritual and ceremony behaviors called laws to all aspects of life. Ignorance of Caucasian dictated rights or laws of human behavior is no excuse for accidentally violating Caucasian laws. Caucasians say that ignorance of their law is no excuse and do not exempt the perpetrator from punishment. The individual right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is a right that can only be guaranteed by a group. A group must have land properly and power to guarantee individual rights. This is a psychotic method of bestowing rights to the elite few, enabling them to exploit, manipulate, and control the majority of people. The food supply and the planet Earth, Caucasian relationships to people, science, the body, nutrition, and food is a series of rituals and ceremonies which they call law or fact. Further, the Caucasian science rituals are used to determine what is real and what is unreal. If the Caucasian can perform the same chemical trick or physical ritual twice, then it is considered real. In other words, since God has not made the same person twice exactly, then God is not real. In nature, even identical twins are not exactly the same. Caucasian science rituals are not directly related to nature, spirituality, and God. They are related to their rituals. African science is directly related to the spiritual ecology of nature and God. Therefore, Africans did not pollute or disrespect the ecology of the earth or the human body. The human body is an ecologically perfect system. For example, the liver takes waste from byproducts of digestion and turns them into bile salts, which are used as digestive enzymes that break down eaten food. The lungs breathe in air and exhale carbon dioxide. They use the carbon dioxide to regulate breathing in and breathing out. The large intestine recycles electrolytes and water in food by extracting the minerals and water from digested foods. Minerals are recycled and used to make hair and finger and toenails. The body's ability to recycle nutrients and melanin is hampered and destroyed by synthetic junk foods, polluted water and air, eating animal flesh, dairy products, alcohol, nicotine, drugs, white sugar, salt, oils, bleached flour, and vaccines. Vaccines are pollutants that poison the ecology of the body. Pollutants, poison, and waste stored in the body cause disease. Vaccines are a superstitious ritual performed by Caucasian medicine in health treatment ceremonies called medical care. Vaccines are based on the ignorant belief that the human body will not react, so-called immunity. The body always reacts to stimulants, food, drugs, rain, the sun, sound, touch, taste, odors, spirituality, electromagnetic forces, and the environment. A body that does not react to the disease, either positively or negatively, is not immune but dead. The body is never immune to life. Bodily cleansing or so-called disease reaction is a life function. A living human cannot be immune to living or bodily reactions. In any case, vaccines are made of the diseased cells of animals and humans. Vaccines use a concoction of pus and unsterilized human or animal blood, HeLa cells, short form of a black lady's name, Henrietta Lacks, and are uterine cancer cells added to diseased kidney cells from the green monkey, cells from the pig's stomach called trispin, and toxic poisons. This Caucasian polluted concoction is injected into the veins of Africans with a hypodermic needle and called medicine. All vaccines are chemical garbage that destroys health. This includes the pus soups called polio, diphtheria, measles, mumps, rubella, smallpox, malaria, tetanus, and influenza vaccines. Caucasians dump pollution into the body to protect the body's natural ecology. This is in contrast to Africans who merely extend their relationship with God by spiritualizing the body with natural foods. Oddly enough, the ancient Africans' garbage dumps were spiritualized with plants and treated like living spiritual organisms. The ancient cities of Africa had city dumps that did not pollute or destroy the ecology. These city dumps were surrounded by plants. Plants served to use the rich compost of the garbage dump, protect from insect overpopulation, keep the soil in balance, maintain moisture, stop soil erosion, and provide food, herbs, and beauty. The garbage dumps contained plants such as henbane, apricot, flax, acacia, marigold, olive, myrtle, chrysanthemum, plum, fleabane, basil, and pomegranate. Builders used medicinal herbs, fruits, and vegetable plants in designing temples, cities, irrigation channels, as well as garbage dumps. Eni, under King Thutmose I, was an herbalist who designed gardens and garbage dumps. Senufa, the mayor of Thebes during the rule of Amenophis II, was in charge of the medical herbs and vegetables around the city dumps and cemeteries. There were many medicinal herbs stores in the Egyptian Empire. They supplied medicinal herbs for private and public dumps, gardens, clothing, and food storage, ornaments, wearing apparel, and offerings. The herbalist Nek, during the rule of Amenophis III, was in charge of the official medicinal herbs and ceremonial usage of herbs for the city. Africans, in order to prevent the wasteful accumulation of paper packaging, used herbs for packing, storage of food, and the protection of food, clothing, and household items. Herbal packaging was used to protect clothes and foods that were to be transported by ships, horses, camels, or wagons from insect damage. There were herbs pictured in the Theban tombs of the 18th dynasty. Herbs also gave a pleasant scent to stored items and respected a spiritual energy. Natural herbal packaging could be brewed as teas or used as poultice in medical care. This is in direct contrast to the Caucasian wastefulness and pollution of Ta. Ecology of the body and Ta are one. Living with spirituality means respecting the body and eating natural foods, and morality for the body is not taking anything that pollutes the body. This belief is built in the African family diet, medicine, and lifestyle. The African lifestyle uses animals and plants in the written language, arts, cyclic laws, astrological science, architecture, and fabric designs as a way to emphasize a spiritual ecology with nature. In every area of African society, a reverence and respect for the environment is evident. For example, the Egyptian kingdoms were named after plants, insects, and animals such as Bull Cult, the Bee King, and Papyrus King. In African ecology, the family technology was used. The African viewed Ta as Mother, Father, Earth. Disrespect for the environment was considered disrespect of the privilege to obey God's will. Any destruction of Ta was destruction of God's spirit reflected by your mother, father. Therefore, any destruction of Ta also destroys your human being. Ecology says with the holistic balance of a person, this human ecology is reflected in the person's relationship with their family, culture, diet, and God. The practice of human ecology is learned by a harmonious interaction with other races and nature. Consequently, environmental ecology merely mirrors humanistic ecology. The smallest unit of ecology is the family. There must be harmonious, unconditional love between one race and another, or there cannot be ecology with the environment. It is a human imperative that ecology be preserved. The world has become a garbage can because of Caucasian pollution. The Caucasian race's inability to protect and save themselves from disease and infertility reflects an error in human ecology. For example, the United Nations census of the world population indicates that Caucasians are at a zero population growth. Africans in Haiti will double their population in 30 years, while the typical Caucasians in Italy may double their population by the year 3000. In order to balance the infertility, ecological disaster of their race, Caucasians constantly promote sex in all types of advertisements, such as toothpaste, automobiles, deodorant, toilet paper, soap, chewing gum, and hair grease commercials. They use movies, news reports, sports, religions, weight loss, magazines, and music as a sexploitation tactic to increase their population. However, their continued abuse of nature and Africans dooms them to be unhealthy. It must be remembered that they had a population decline between 8 and 1/100th of the world population before they started the race wars with Africans and the natives on Turtle Island. It was after the invasions of Africa that they had an increase to 1/6 of the world population. The current decrease in population is viewed by them as another cycle of the decrease, increase, decrease population pattern. The decreases were usually caused by pollution of the environment, the absence of hygiene, or by diet, diseases, and war. Their destructive human ecology causes the new types of destruction to the environment. It is totally totally insane to ask the Caucasian people to be ecologically minded without military enforcement. Caucasians' new types of businesses use genetics to clone vegetables, microbes, and people. These freak species of vegetables, animals, and microbes do not fit into the natural ecology. Nature does not have a method of control to keep these freaks in balance with the environment. This results in a new type of pollution heaped onto the current pollution. A freak ecology is required to balance these freak life forms. The businesses that create these clones do so to maximize profits. Cloned microbes are used to accelerate food, animals, and vegetable growth, give them a cosmetically healthy appearance, and allow poor quality produce to live until sale time. Cloning companies use massive bioreactor tanks to grow genetically altered microbes such as E. coli, Bacillus thuringiensis, Methylococcus, Biobaxus, Bedelbrio, etc. These microbes are used in copper mining to make plastic, treat telephone poles, prevent frost on oranges, in therapeutic baths, public water, etc. There is no agency, policing, the military, or any legal power to make Caucasians freak users behave. The ecology of the planet Earth is on a death course. African children are being terrorized with cloned vegetables, meat and dairy products, vaccines, environmental pollutants, and synthetic drugs. There are chemical children that think, feel, behave, and react under chemical freak influences. They are chemical freaks controlled by freaks. Their holistic health degenerates with constant disease. This results in their being placed in special education classes, leading them to ultimately be placed in elderly concentration camps called nursing homes. It is the moral duty or curse of Africans to save their children and save this planet. There is no compromise with the curse. Either the African will give the planet ecological freedom, or the Caucasian will continue to imprison the ecology with pollution and freaks. Africans cannot leave the fate of the planet on natural, karmic, divine, prana laws or a prophet to correct the polluted, off-balanced ecology. It is the responsibility of all African people to collect the Caucasian people, because Africans are the living, natural, karmic, divine, prana laws and the living prophets. The African's duty is to make the earth healthy so that the children can be healthy. Without a healthy planet, we cannot have a healthy culture. A natural food diet gives us a healthy body, which allows us to have a holistically healthy spirit, family, and culture. Holistic health is a blackener, while sickness and pollution of the ecology is a whitener. Health means to protect ourselves and protect our living quarters called the earth. It is a matter of life or death. It is life of all living forms that is at stake. If Nutricide is not stopped, then Africans will not have the human body needed to live a spiritual life and to save this planet. It is an African Ma'at duty to stop Nutricide of the children and to confront the diseased Caucasians. A diet without chemicalized meat is healthier. A recent study conducted by several medical doctors show that Seventh-day Adventists who do not eat meat for religious reasons have 40% less coronary disease, 400% less death rate from respiratory diseases, 100% lower mortality rate from all causes, 1,000% lower death rate from lung cancer, 50% less dental caries among their children.
Context of White Supremacy.
Whitney Houston was a nutritional Uncle Tom. Did you know that? That is one thing. You put it down right here today, Thursday, May 28, 2020. I learned the late Whitney Houston, Bodyguard, I Want to Dance Tonight, a nutritional Uncle Tom. I don't even know what she did to be a nutritional Uncle Tom. Was she out hustling ice cream or Big Macs? Do y'all know? Why is Whitney Houston a nutritional Uncle Tom? Can we get a hold of Bobby Brown? What did she do to be a and Anita Baker? I haven't heard her in years. What did Anita Baker do to be a nutritional Uncle Tom? Is she out hustling, I don't know, fried chicken? Nightshades? I know Jello pudding eating Bill Cosby. He's a sexual terrorist, and he's a nutritional Uncle Tom. Worst book ever, unless you can, explain why Whitney Houston is a nutritional Uncle Tom. I didn't hear that. Remember Kevin Costner? He was at her services. I don't remember him saying, she did Bodyguard. Now, you want to talk about an abomination. Woo! I don't know if that makes her a nutritional Uncle Tom, but it's certainly not a good film, Cowbell. But, yeah, I don't remember him saying, so glad to be here, and she had problems. Great film. Now, she was a nutritional Uncle Tom, but I mean, hey, we all got flaws. We forgive her. We're going to all eat more bananas, right? All right. I don't remember that. The number, 605-313-5164. It's on page 287. 287, list of nutritional Uncle Toms. Including Uncle Ben. How is Uncle Ben and Uncle Tom? That's not even a real black one. That's why I said I can't even take this serious. Like, are you telling me I'm supposed to read this and take this seriously? Uncle Ben is not even a real black person, and he's an Uncle Tom too. Jesus Christ. 605-313. And he got to answer mine. She's an Uncle Tom. I'm going to pull you off that box and call you an Uncle Tom. The number is 605-313-5164. The code is 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Man name calling is fun. He called Whitney Houston a nutritional Uncle Tom and then referenced Mr. Fuller's book at the end. Miss Whitney Houston. 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61. Press star 61. I felt bad for Bill Cosby too. Like, I'm gonna watch the Cosby Show tonight. That's gonna be my, like, I felt bad for Bill Cosby. Like, greater confinement. They called him a sexual terrorist. Now he's a nutritional Uncle Tom and a sexual terrorist, and you got to live out your days in greater confinement. Like, man, I'm going to watch the Cosby Show. They won't even let him out for COVID-19. At-risk population, and then, nope, you're going to stay in confinement. You're a nutritional Uncle Tom, and you're a sexual terrorist. You're going to stay right here, Rona or no. So now I can read the other half of our investors' commentary because we've read the rest. So the rest of what he had to say. Share. We stopped at number 5. Number 6, the author discussed the spraying of chemicals into the clouds causing droughts, hurricanes, and forest fires. This reminded me of discussion of chemtrails that listeners have remarked about. One thing you can pay attention to in those dialogues, most of the time, it's not really attached to anything you can do. I never hear anything when they start talking about white people are manipulating the weather and they make hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis and all of the above. Like, we should do. Yeah. Number 7. It is clear from the text that the author is against vaccines. I wonder if Dr. Afrika was aware that African slave Onesimus is credited with introducing an early concept of inoculation against the smallpox virus by rubbing pus into open wounds during the 1700s in the Massachusetts colonies. The practice is one he brought from Africa and was apparently successful. How about that? Now, that's why I said I'm not an expert. I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm an expert on vaccines. I know all about it. We've had Dr. Curtis Cost on the program, and I'm an expert. No, we did have Dr. Cost on the program, 2010. But I am not an expert. There's a lot of controversy about that. We talked to Dr. Welsing about it. We talked about it a number of times. There's a lot of white people. I said that. They had a report today in NPR. I posted it. It was this morning. It was a quarter. It was, I think, about only a quarter of black people. I'm going to get the exact report so I can give you the exact name. Accuracy is important. Let me see. Let's see. Make sure I give the total name because it was stunning. So it's... all right, here we go. So the title of the report, poll shows only a quarter of African Americans plan to get coronavirus vaccine. That was just today. Published, or I saw it today. It was published yesterday evening. Polls show only a quarter of African Americans plan to get coronavirus vaccine. Maybe a lot of folks read Dr. Afrika's book, or at least got that part of it about, vaccines are a bad thing. But there's a lot of controversy about that. That's why I said it references lots of details. Like, if you're going to talk about some of these issues that are not cut and dry, like we don't have a unanimous voice about this, even amongst black people, amongst white people, amongst anybody. I think there should be more detail, which might mean you would have to narrow the focus of the text, which is generally a good thing. But that was a super interesting article. Hopefully we can discuss it this weekend. Poll shows only a quarter of African Americans plan to get coronavirus vaccine, even though they've had tons of whites out in the street with guns protesting, saying that they don't aren't going to get a vaccine either. They give the data in the article that it's a whole lot of white people also who do not want a vaccine. Anyway, continuing from our list, but that's interesting. Folks can check that out. Onesimus, it's Onesimus, credited with introducing an early concept of inoculation against smallpox. Research project, maybe. Next, I am in agreement with Dr. Afrika regarding his discussion of pollution of earth, dangers of anti-sexual behavior, food terrorism, denial disease, and seasoning conditioning by racist man, racist woman, and racist child. Comments from our investor. Now that we got everything else in, again, I am so happy. We are almost done. Star 61 if you have comments to share. If you didn't get to share it all during the first section, make sure you get your hand up now so that we don't miss you. Please don't wait until the last minute if you think you would like to chime in. Let's see. Red in Ohio, did you have commentary? You should be with us.
Give me one moment. I'm still trying to wrap up my notes.
Gotcha. Take your time. Let's see. Retired firefighter, our other caller, if you all have commentary to share. If anybody has any insight. Yes, sir.
I do. Actually, Uncle Ben was a real person. He's a person. According to, I looked him up on Google because I was curious about if he was a real person also. It says, according to Mars, Uncle Ben was an African-American rice grower known for the quality of his rice. Gordon L. Harwell, an entrepreneur who had supplied rice to the armed forces in World War II, chose the name Uncle Ben as a means to expand his marketing effort to the general public. So Uncle Ben was actually a real person. And vaccines did come from Africa, and that's true. And that information can be found in Harriet Washington's book, Medical Apartheid. She has it in that. She mentions this African who gave a version of a vaccine. It's not the same type of vaccine. That's why so many so-called black people might not want to take it because of white supremacy, of course. You know, it would be illogical to assume that they're going to give you something that is going to be good for you. So that's why they might not want to take it. And also from the last segment, I agree with the retired firefighter when he said that a lot of the rhetoric from that time was still good information. Because I think a lot of scholars of that time, even before that, begin to understand that a lot of racism and white supremacy is really about psychology. So a lot of them try to counter it. I think it was a bit much myself. That's all I have to say. I'll mute my line.
Much obliged. That is great information, Uncle Tom. Real person. I hope Dr. Well, he says fictitious, so hopefully he's not referring to the real Uncle Ben. But, yeah, I don't know. No name calling. That simplifies everything. That way you don't have to be name calling fictitious black people or real life black people, or fictitious black people that are based on real life black people. Medical apartheid. Now that is in my top 5 favorites. Quoting, talk about it, detail, no typos, no name calling. In 1721, an enslaved African named Onesimus proposed a novel medical technique that saved the city of Boston from a dreaded smallpox epidemic and provided the first important medical advance in the New World. Onesimus, a pretty intelligent fellow, had been given to Cotton Mather, the Puritan teacher and amateur scientist, by a grateful congregation in 1706. Look at all those footnotes. Because a case of smallpox conferred complete lifelong immunity, slave dealers routinely advertised the fact, or fiction, that a slave had survived a bout of the disease. And we'll stop there. But yes, quite a bit of detail. I miss reading detailed books with footnotes and no typos, spelling errors. Focused, and about the topic that's on the front cover, Medical Apartheid, Not a Psychoanalysis of White People, and Whitney Houston is a nutritional Uncle Tom. Retired firefighter, did you have commentary?
Yes. For a very long time, and especially in the quote-unquote school system in this part of the world, white people glorified themselves, and we were forced to want to be like white people, quote-unquote. You know, during my lifetime, when I was much younger, television was still primarily new. Now you had not just the audio with the radio, but you also had the visual, and everything, like Dr. Welding said, was white. So to, I guess, attempt to offset that, non-white people, non-white black people, in my experience in this part of the world, start talking about how great and beautiful black people were. But it wasn't so fulfilling on how white people are able to be so deceptive and powerful, and no one is able to stop them. I think that should be the primary study that we should be doing. And when it comes to the subject matter that Dr. Afrika is supposed to have some additional knowledge of, that a higher percentage of non-white people don't have, I would say the best thing to do, logically speaking, is to stay within. I'm not saying he has to limit he had to limit himself, but stay within relevancy, one book at a time, so people can get what you're talking about. I'm listening to some of the things that he's saying. I don't mind as far as the idea of bringing out the incorrectness that the white people who practice racism has and still do to this very moment when it comes to quote-unquote nutrition, and use it against non-white people and design it to be favorable for themselves, either from the standpoint of hoarding the information or the food itself. You know, I don't mind, but to mix it with some of the other things that he was saying that don't make logical sense and or it's not practical to 2020, as opposed to, 1,000 years ago, would be, in my opinion, considered to be counterproductive. At just late date, because the information is there. The information is available much more readily than what it was, let's say, 30, 40 years ago. It's much more available than now. With the advent of travel, it's more expedient, and heck, the doggone computer you carry around in your pocket. As far as information is concerned on what's going on, and I think that he had the ability to be able to verbally articulate that experience, and I just think he could have done better with the book. Let me ask the caller that I think you said that he helped you with some sort of medical condition that you had. Is that
asthma?
Okay. Did you get that information from this book?
I got it from both of his books, that book and African Holistic Health.
Okay, which one is there a more percentage with one book than it is with the other?
African Holistic Health. I would say African holistic health, because African holistic health gives you recipes,
Okay.
things like that. Yeah.
Okay, even the title sounds like what you're saying is accurate. Yeah, even the title of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir. And if I may, the same more should have been done in terms of the psychology by the I forgot what the firefighter said about more could have been done. I forgot about what he said.
More what?
More could have been done in terms of the of the psychology. Remember I said the thing about the feel good information, and you said more should have been done. You understood it, but more could have been done.
I got a bad habit. I'm getting old. I would say something, and 5 minutes later, I kind of like to forget. Gus has a way better memory than I have. I'll try to think about what I said. Yeah, because I don't remember exactly on what you're quoting me on right now.
If my memory is accurate, I think he was just saying more focus with all of the knowledge that Dr. Afrika has on this subject matter, because you were saying that the African holistic health sounds like it has more detail, that maybe if he could have provided a little more focus.
No, it was stuff before that. It was
something earlier.
Oh, okay. The earlier portion about which part of the book?
About when I said when he said about me when I said about the feel good information that they were given at that time.
Oh, that
what I've been saying before, Gus. About in the 80s, that sort of thing. It was I started to say cliche, but it was like a method during that time where you would see somebody wearing, fully traditional African garb, and the physical persona of the person would be kind of like, chest up and that sort of thing, and then the rhetoric would be sharp on, black people being charismatic and the top of the line, and then this old stupid white people came by and messed it all up for everybody on the planet, that sort of thing, and they just stupid and dumb, and that sort of thing. I mean, it was kind of like what we're actually experiencing in this book. It is similar to some other books, as well as people that I've heard speak, quote unquote, at institutions of different types, colleges, churches, that sort of thing during the 80s, because, like I said before, for a very long time, and like I said, all of us can have experience of white people bragging about how beautiful they are and how smart they were, in elementary school. I mean, when we were in elementary school, middle school, high school, in the quote unquote books of scientific study about anything that was connected with a white person. So we decided in and around the late 60s, 70s, and the 80s I guess to try to balance that off. I guess that did, and I may be being, nice about it as far as trying to be helpful and constructive, that we were doing it to kind of like offset, that particular thing by saying that we were beautiful and whatnot, which is, I mean, the bottom line is, yeah. The bottom line is, to, those are things that were, lies that white people were stating in the first place, and, even about us, and so I don't know. Yeah, that's basically what I thought was going on during that time.
And when you saying the scholars were putting that out so for people to feel good about themselves to counter the negative stuff and the over exaggeration of what the so-called white people were saying about
maybe
right.
I can't dictate exactly what was in somebody's mind and intentions, but
I think they were doing that. I think they were doing that. However, I think the reason why it didn't work as well as we might have hoped it worked is because they don't have the big three. White supremacy has the big three: school,
what's that?
religion, and celebration. When you control that, those little sprinkles of feel good is not going to be enough because you can't contend with that. And when someone has you under that condition for 12 years at the minimum, they got you.
Yeah.
So
well, I really don't see any interest in the endeavor. It's like time wasting to me. The whole thing about trying to make somebody feel good.
Right.
I haven't seen anything at all that by doing that it would register into solving this problem.
Right. But
unless
something they would
somebody can tell me. I don't know.
Well, when you having the experience, you got to try things. You know, when they was trying it, they didn't know it wasn't going to work. They just had to do something to counter what was happening to them because they, it was messing with their self-esteem and whatever else, whatever.
Well, once you know somebody was not telling you the truth, I think that would be the remedy for that. Once you figure out that person was not telling you the truth.
Right.
May I have heard?
Yes.
Greetings, Red.
Thank you. I'll just be quick. Just with my note, it seemed like the segment started off with the title of food terrorism or food terrorists, and I was just really trying my hardest to gather information that would align with the title. So I heard a portion about Black people in the U.S. Was given land after slavery. I didn't really know that. I've heard the whole 40 acres and a mule thing, but then it was of course taken, and I do remember hearing about it was redistributed to the people the Confederate veterans, I guess you would call them. And then the Portuguese forcing the Africans to grow cash crops, coffee. I think it said nuts and tobacco. I know for sure I heard coffee. And then there was the part, and I heard the emphasis on properly instead of property, about Africans must have land, property, and something else. The last thing I want to mention is the portion that I did agree with about us or Africans, or I'm not quite sure what term he used, but about people basically seeing an optometrist who wears glasses, which I don't know how much I would agree with that, because there could be a plethora of reasons why you would have to wear glasses besides someone not taking care of their eyes, but a dentist not having any teeth, and that would, make a lot of sense. I'm sure there might be a reason why a dentist might not have teeth, but it seems like it would be more logically that the person just wasn't taking care of themselves, or even a dietitian who may be overweight. Now, I haven't seen one, but I've also have not encountered that many dietitians. But that I understand that premise. And I'll mute my line. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Much obliged, Red in Ohio. Thank you for the commentary. Yes, properly instead of property. That was another one where I've had to pause many times in narrating the text because of the typos and all that jazz. I did want to make sure I got in. No one shared And I see the logic in that as well. I don't want to go to, and I think it's pretty widely known or widely reported. Like I've seen a number of reports about how doctors are not very healthy and tend to die at an earlier age than the general population. So these might not be the healthiest folks to take recommendations from on, longevity and what to eat to live, that sort of thing. I don't like practicing with yoga instructors who look like they sit around and eat donuts all day. I didn't hear anybody with any insight on how or why Whitney Houston is a nutritional Uncle Tom. If anybody finds that out, I would love to know. Actually, to go back to the nutritional Uncle Toms, I made a note when I saw that, because all that's on the same section. Bill Cosby and all those folks. Like Bill Cosby, I guess I understand. Michael Jordan, he did those McDonald's commercials. I think B.B. King did some fast food commercials too. Spike Lee, I think, helped produce. I don't know why Herbie Hancock is a nutritional Uncle Tom. He's a musician. Anyway, so I marked that. It's on 287. And so I go to the index. I initially looked at the index just because asthma was mentioned. And the caller said that this book and Dr. Afrika personally helped him overcome his asthma, which is, spectacular. We had people who called in before who said that Dr. Afrika helped them, heal and improve their health and diet. That's outstanding. We need more of that. So I was looking to see what's mentioned. I think I've heard asthma used, but if someone said, what did he say about specific things you can do to improve if you have asthma, improve your health, I couldn't really point them to anything. I don't remember a detailed section where he went over anything like in a comprehensive manner, and I could say that about everything in this book. But I looked in the index, and it says asthma, page 35 and page 269. So apparently we've read everything that's going to be covered about asthma because we're already in the 300s. So I looked on page 35. The word asthma is not there. I looked a few times. Said, wait a minute, maybe I'm, being a coon. Okay, 35, boom, boom, not there. Okay, maybe 269. I'll look there. I'll look 269. No. I'm saying that's odd. I do remember asthma coming up in the book. I flipped back, and then Aunt Jemima is also listed in the index. And Aunt Jemima is in the index listed on page 302 one time. And I said, well, okay, well, let's go and see if Aunt Jemima is on page 302. No, but I do know Aunt Jemima is on 207 because that's the same page where Whitney Houston is classified as a nutritional Uncle Tom. That means that the index for this book is wrong. I have never read a book where the index is wrong. I don't have anything else to say at all. It's trash. What a precedent. If anybody else reads a book where the index is wrong, and I mean not like a page off. Aunt Jemima is on 287. It's listed in the index at 302. So like substantially off. So even if I do say, hey, I want to get my anti-gravitational travel on, I want to go back and look for the African Liberation Army and find out why Whitney Houston and Bill Cosby are nutritional Uncle Toms. What page is that on? Let me look at the index, 302. Okay. I can't even rely on the index to guide me through the book. Appreciate that, Dr. Afrika, and the editors, whomever is responsible for editing this book, because people do that professionally. If he got professional editors, woo, I hope they are out of business. If it was not edited, man, if you write anything and it's for black people, get an editor, a quality editor. And that's all I have to say. Are we done for the day or anything else? Everybody satisfied? Great.
I have to figure the black male who we didn't study him, but he came across in one of our book reports talking about fast food restaurants. The former NFL player that had the most, I think, Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants would probably public enemy number one with him. You know, with you know what I'm talking about, Gus?
Nutritional coon, yes. I remember the book.
I just can't think of his name.
Right. I remember the book where he was mentioned because we just read it. We had Dr. McDonald, I think is her name. She has a great book on racism and the fast food industry. We just read it a few months ago, but she mentions him within that book. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, he would be public enemy number one.
Lots of nutritional Uncle Toms, apparently. Whitney Houston didn't own a McDonald's, though. I don't think. Well, maybe she did. I don't know. Maybe
right, and she was very slim.
Was that read in Ohio?
I think I found why he might have said that is because she was in a commercial for Diet Coke.
Sugary sodas, nutritional Uncle Tom out there suggesting that. Yeah, that's the Spartamate. They raised that before. See, there you go. We just had to dig a little bit. I bet everybody, they probably all did food commercials and see nutritional Uncle Tom, Whitney Houston. That's right.
I think they paid her a good salary for it.
Anything else? Grand. Well, very sad. I'm going to listen to I Want to Dance with Somebody, and then I'm going to watch an episode from The Cosby Show, so I feel a little bit better. Bill Cosby. Man, oh man. I didn't eat Jell-O Pudding Pops. He did a lot of commercials for Jell-O and Jell-O Pudding Pops, and yeah. He's not a victim, though. He's just... Anyway, we'll be here tomorrow for workplace racism, neutralizing workplace racism. And then we'll be here on Saturday for the compensatory call-in. I guess that is one thing with the whole COVID-19 situation. They've had so many problems with meat processing plants. We should have another clip on that. That's like double whammy racism because they have a lot of non-white people who work at those processing plants. But they've had a lot of reports about outbreaks at those plants and unsafe conditions and, being fearful that, if an employee gets contaminated and then they touch a meat product or whatever and it goes out and that type of thing. Like the New York Times, I believe, they just had a report, the end of meat. That was just this week. It's been a lot of reports. That was where we ended at this week. I'm talking about all the damage from meat consumption. I am plant-based and proud a couple of years now plus. Definitely recommend that if, as a result of all this craziness, people start being a little more reluctant to consume meat products because of all this. Fantastic. Eat more veggies. Alrighty. Much obliged for everyone tuning in. We are almost done. I am giddy. I think we got at least probably 3 sessions. Might be, I hope to God it cannot be more, but should be about 3 and out of here. Anywho, thanks everyone for your participation. Hope it was not too tough for your Thursday. Sobriety would be best. That's one thing Dr. Afrika and I agree on. No cigarettes, no alcohol, none of the rest of it. We do not need any narcotics to help us deal with all of the terrorism that whites perpetrate against us worldwide. In addition to being sober, let's be buckled as we go out and about, now that they're easing restrictions across the country, at least in the U.S. We've seen a lot of ugly footage the past week or so. I would be very vigilant going out. There are a lot of armed race soldiers, badge or no. They claim, or at least they will allege, that they're stressed or anxious about everything that's happening. So they'll have lots of excuses to be violent with black people, black males, black females, black children, all of the above. Be very alert, vigilant when you're out and about. It's not really a good time to just be, joyriding. As I've said, I would be out with purpose and probably trying to get back in. Probably still wouldn't be too much hanging out when it's dark. It's just not really the safest of times for a lot of reasons. Racist white supremacists being at the center of all of those reasons. You're sober, you're buckled. If you're driving, you're not on the cell phone. Just trying to do all the little things that we can to minimize contact with race soldiers, badge or no. That's it. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy, we ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect, which means no name calling. The highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, especially when we are in contact with another black person. No name calling. That does not help us solve the problem at all. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.